what's happening, everybody? Welcome to the show. It's Tuesday. This is the Jeff Gerstmann Show. I am your host for this week's edition of the show. My name's Jeff Gerstmann. How's it going? What's happening out there? What's going on out there in the world? It's another beautiful Tuesday. Roll down the windows in your car. Take your goddamn pants off. In your car. Be the naked person in the car, so when the school bus full of kids drives by and looks down, they go, "What the fuck?" I was that kid. I was that kid in that school bus. I looked down into the car and saw a naked dude and went, "What the fuck?" We were going to an opera. No, we were going to the San Francisco. We were going to like the opera house or something to see some, I don't know, get some culture. And it was like one of the first times that I had ever been to San Francisco. And sure enough, it's just a dude driving a car. Just like driving a car regular, like not like doing, you know, he wasn't doing anything untoward. He was just like a naked dude driving a car. And you're like, what? Why is this naked dude driving this car? And all the kids, we all piled onto that side of the bus to look down at the naked dude and went like, that is fully a naked dude down there. And then I think a teacher or someone saw what we were doing, and then they were like, "Oh God, don't look at that." And then, you know, what are you gonna do? Like, the guy drove away. It's not like you can go like, "Are you?" I don't know what you're supposed to do in that sort of scenario. But yeah, I don't know. It was just a naked guy driving a car. Maybe you could be that naked guy driving a car. I feel like that would not go super well. I feel like maybe stances have changed on what you would do if you saw. Yeah, this Lurv says that's the San Francisco I miss. Yeah, I don't know. The San Francisco had a real fucking whimsy to it for a good long time. I think it's still, you know, like I don't know, like I haven't been there in a long time, so I don't really know. It's San Francisco is simultaneously not nearly. It has never once been the hellhole that people think it is. We're like, oh, there's it's a horrible wasteland. Like, it's fine, whatever. Like, it's a cultural wasteland now because it's just like all the tech bro shit and all the fucking AI dicks and everything. Like, it's just a bunch of fucking assholes, now. And like everything got super expensive and anything with any kind of culture, like every a year or so you hear about like one more concert venue that was hanging on for fucking dear life, and you think about all the fucking awesome shows you saw there, and then it's like, oh yeah, it's going, Pot on the Hill's going away, this place going away, this place going away. It's been this kind of slow, sad thing on that front. But that's probably not just San Francisco. That's probably a lot of places. So, but that is, I don't know, like San Francisco's not so bad, except for all the fucking AI horse shit that's there now. Like, that's, I think, the actual problem. It's not the, like people tell these stories about like, there's poop all over the street, blah, 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 there's this, and they'll walk up and stab you. It's like all the like scare tactics, like, oh my God, the big city, they're going to just pluck you off the street and give you a good murdering. Like, dude, fuck off. Anyway, 200. This is episode 200 of the program. Which is wild. It's 200. That is 200 Tuesdays, give or take. There were a couple shows that happened on not Tuesday or whatever. There was that time I got COVID, and a couple of other things over the over these what is that? That's 4-ish years, something like that. 52 weeks a year, something along those lines. So I don't know. We've been here talking about video games. I mean, not here in the garage. We've only been here in the garage for a handful of months here, but yeah, it's been crazy, to make it to this point. And thanks to everybody for your support for getting us there, for all of us getting there, and being alive still. I don't know. I don't really have anything like, great to say about. Like it's it's a weird it's a weird time right now, obviously, but thanks for everyone for keeping it going. And yeah, if you want to support the show and get it ad free, you can head over to jeff.zone and check out the Patreon. Thanks everybody for having signed up and all of that good stuff. There's you get, go read about it. You get a bonus podcast every week. If these 200 are not enough for you, and I know you need more, and I provide it every Wednesday. So do go check out the bonus show. It's fun. And yeah, I've been, spring break was last week, and so the kids were around a little bit more. They were off at a weird gymnastics camp and kind of doing their thing. And then my son got sick there, and so over the last weekend he's been pretty much confined. Today is his first day out. He's been confined to quarters for the past few days here to get better and hopefully not get the other kids sick. And I don't know what the right approach is there. It feels like whatever we do never works out quite right. It's like, okay, we're going to keep him in his room for like 4 days and everybody get real crazy, wash your hands and, and then let him out. And then 3 days after he gets out, someone else is sick. And it's just like, it ends up being like 2.5 weeks of someone being ill. And then I get the sniffles for like a day and a half, and it just kind of the cycle begins anew. But I don't know, like it's the other side of that coin is that my daughter, who is gonna turn 7 here pretty soon, he's not been around to play games with her, and so she's been looking for something to do. So I ended up playing a bunch of Big Brain Academy with her, and also a bunch of the Super Mario Wonder update to the Bella Bell Park stuff. We ended up playing a bunch of that together, sideways on the Joy-Cons, which is a terrible way to play video games, but don't tell them that. They'll want pro controllers, and we can't have that. But the Bella Bell Park stuff is really, I don't know, we there's a bunch of multiplayer stuff in it, and it's a bunch of co-op or competitive stuff like, oh, you both have Yoshis, and you need to eat as much fruit as possible before you get to the end, or you just collect as many coins as you can, or just like silly stuff like one player runs and the other player jumps, and you need to get to the end of this level, or one player is putting down donut blocks and the other player has to jump along the donut blocks to make it to the end of the level, and so you have to work together to accomplish those tasks. So we did a bunch of that. I don't think that stuff's like very good. I don't know, like it's stuff that passed the time, which is the nicest thing you could say about it. But you do have to work together on some of that, and that's a nice concept, I suppose. But I feel like a lot of that stuff is just not super fun, not deeply engaging, like not as good as the main game. Just here's this whole area with you can go and do some attractions and it's this whole separate area full of multiplayer, different kind of multiplayer games, and I don't know. It was fun to play with my daughter, and we were goofing around and whatever. But like the actual content of the game itself, not great. You can still bring in your whatever badges you have unlocked. Like it'll let you pick some of those and bring those in, which actually is kind of funny because you can sort of subvert, like the one of the levels is like, okay, you can use the mouse. You can lay down a Switch 2 controller and use it as a mouse to lay down the donut blocks if you're doing that. You don't have to, and I didn't because we were playing on a bed and it just wasn't a great way to. There was no mouse control surface area there, and so you can do all that stuff, or you could bring the parachute hat, which lets you glide down. And I could just, like my daughter was laying down donut blocks and I was just jumping over them and ignoring them and like, kind of gliding to the next bit of actual land. And she would go, "Hey, you didn't even use my stuff." I was like, "Oh, well, I don't know. Maybe they should make the levels better. What do you want from me?" But I don't know. That was fun. but not. Yeah, I don't know. I feel like the split of people talking about the Bella Bell Park stuff has been pretty. Yeah, I feel like the talk on that has not been super positive on just like what that add-on content is, and yeah, I have not not found that to be super exciting to play, whether alone or with other people. So we did mess around with that. I have been playing. So I've been playing a game that we'll talk about, I think, next week, but in lieu of talking about that, I have been playing. I only play the latest, newest video games. I have been playing a game called Castlevania Aria of Sorrow for the hot new console, the Game Boy Advance, and it stars a plucky young Soma Cruz who hangs out in a castle and does Castlevania stuff. I don't know fucking anything about. I don't know nothing about no Soma Cruz. I had never played it before. I'm like playing it for the first time because like when a lot of that stuff came out, I didn't like. I was not reviewing. I was not reviewing handheld games for a good long time. We had a really good system, and by that I mean we had Frank Provo somewhere in the Midwest who loved to review handheld games, and he became our go-to guy for a lot of handheld coverage. And so the majority of it went to him. There was some first-party stuff or some other kind of bigger games that sometimes we would keep in-house for review. But like generally speaking, I just didn't touch that stuff. And so like I just there were a ton of those games that I just never really played. I bet that Greg reviewed some of those Castlevania games. I bet that Greg did some of those reviews. That seems like that is my rough memory of it, is that he did some of those. Anyway, so it's my first time playing this GBA Castlevania game, which is, you know, like a lot of those games are pretty well regarded. I think like nowadays, I think people are a little bit pickier about which ones are good and which ones were bad or whatever. But like at the time when those games were coming out, like people were nothing but psyched for them. Like it's now that we're spoiled with the riches of a billion different of these Castlevania handheld for the DS and the, you know, like all of that. I think that there are people that are you know, like have kind of reappraised some of those games in a slightly more negative way. But the idea of like, hey, you like Symphony of the Night, right? We're gonna make some more of those and come up with some different weird ideas along the way. And so Aria of Sorrow has a thing where sometimes if you kill an enemy, you absorb its power, and that gives you your kind of sub-weapon type stuff in a lot of cases. So when you kill the big armored dude with it throws the spinny axe things, you know, you have a percent chance to steal that ability from him, and then you can throw the big spinny axes and you know, throw feathers and fucking bone archers and all this other silly ass shit. It holds up really well. You know, like Soma, the main character in that game, I don't think I realized this, but he does that fucking shuffle, man. He does that Castlevania walk animation that you like so much when Alucard did it. Like this, they still got it, man. And so I've been playing through that. I've seen about 50% of the castle, so I'm up to there's a boss fight against a spoiler warning for Aria of Sorrow, but I'm fighting death, and it's the first hard thing that's been in that game for me anyway. I don't know if I got there early or with the wrong way or whatever. But that is a significantly tougher fight than anything that has been before it. So that's been a pretty good time. I think at a time when, you know, I guess there was a good long time there with the kind of search action genre. You know, we got this rush of handheld Castlevania games, and then Koji Igarashi was, you know, not allowed to make those games past a certain point. Konami went through some shit, and they're still going through some shit, though they do at least ship some games from time to time now, which is nice. But like at some point, Konami just got to a point where they just didn't want to make those games anymore, and they started making those dog shit PS2, you know, like like, you know, I don't know, eventually like Castlevania Judgment and some for the Wii and those stupid fucking Castlevania games that came out. They were both PS2. No, they're more recent than that. Lords of Shadow is the game I'm thinking of. I cannot tell you what platform that game came out on. I keep wanting to say PS2, but that seems extremely wrong. I guess, yeah, it's 360 and PS3, huh? Yeah. Those games are fucking terrible. Those games are straight dog shit. Fuck Zobek. I ain't calling him. But yeah, eventually, like, they decided they wanted to try to make Castlevania something different, and you know, whatever. They hit a point of diminishing returns with the games that Igarashi was making, but like it was fun. Like they would make those games, and you would go to E3, and I think this happened a couple of times, but you know, you would be able to book an interview, and you would be able to talk to Iga-san, and he would show up, and he would have a fucking whip with him, and he'd have a hat. He'd have his hat on. He'd be like, check out this whip. And you'd be like, fucking awesome, dude. He's like, yeah, I brought a whip to E3. You're like, cool. It's fucking awesome, man. I don't know. Like sort of like he did look like a Japanese dude dressing up like Indiana Jones. Like it didn't read as fucking Castlevania. Like on top of that, it wasn't like he came out and was like, look at me, I'm Simon Belmont. He was just like, he had a fucking hat with a brim and he's got a whip, and you're just like, dude, what are you doing? It's awesome. It's awesome. He's awesome. You know, eventually they kind of stopped making those games. And, you know, like I said, I think some of those games became a little bit uneven. And Bloodstained is a hell of a game. I don't know. But I wasn't drawn to it simply because I think the environment for that type of game, the time for that type of game maybe had passed a little bit. I don't know. We went through a trench there where no one was making any games like that, and it felt like there was a hole. And then, like, I don't know, it felt like there was just a big old indie boom, like maybe like post Axiom Verge. Like, I don't think Axiom Verge was like the first, you know, search action game in a wave of them or whatever you want to call it. But like, what is it? I mean, that's an awesome, like, Axiom Verge is I love that fucking game. It felt like we got like a bunch of those all of a sudden, and there's just like more all the time, and it just doesn't, they don't hit the way they used to. I think because we got a rush of a lot of them, and yeah, different takes on them. Like, hey, we're gonna do this as more of a run based thing, like a Dead Cells or something. And then, yeah, I don't know. Eventually, yes, maybe Silk Song will come out, and maybe people will like that. I don't know. But yeah, the genre kind of waxed and waned there for a little bit. But it's nice, you know, again, as someone who didn't play these games originally, like, this is exactly what I'm looking for out of a game like this. You know, turns out what I want out of a good search action video game is, yes, put me in fucking Dracula's castle. Let me enter my name. If I put in something weird as my name, but give me a different dude and some weird shit, and let me go through and get some shit done. But yeah, Aria of Sorrow, ask for it by name. It's as good as the people said. it's a hell of a video game. Let's take a break. We'll come back. We'll talk some more about some other video games. I suppose new and old. Immediately after this, if I can get my mouse cursor onto the other window. What the hell? All right. After this. As we push on through from, you know, cold weather into warmer and warmer and warmer weather, I am always thinking about, like, what's in my closet, and do I need to get rid of this stuff? And as I put this stuff away for next year, just get rid of it, or, I don't know. I'm trying to keep fewer things. So I'm trying to keep things that are, better, well-made, easy to wear. And that's why I keep coming back to Quince. The fabrics are elevated, the fits are thoughtful, and the pricing actually makes sense. Quince makes high-quality, everyday essentials using premium materials like 100% European linen, and they've got these insanely soft, flow-knit activewear fabrics. You get some linen pants and shirts that are lightweight, breathable, and comfortable. Kind of like the perfect layer for spring. Before we get into summer, before things get too crazy, you got some nice stuff right in the middle there. It's a good balance on these pants between like laid back and, refined. So you look put together without looking like you're, trying too hard or like you don't come off like looking like a movie theater usher or something, They've got good flow-knit activewear that's moisture wicking, anti-odor, soft enough that you'll actually want to wear it all day. And the best part, the prices are 50 or 60% less than similar brands. Because Quince works directly with ethical factories and cuts out the middlemen, so you're paying for quality, not brand markup. Everything's designed to last and make getting dressed easy. I got a couple of pairs of shorts, some shirts, more kind of activewear type stuff from Quince, and they've got a wide variety of stuff. They got jewelry, they've got, dresses for the ladies, pants, all that sort of stuff. If you're into pants, they got pants. But, they got some really nice, comfortable shorts. Good for lounging around the house. Good for, you getting out playing tennis with the kids. You doing that? You need a nice pair of shorts to do all that stuff. Refresh your wardrobe with Quince. Go to quince.com/JeffG for free shipping and 365-day returns. It's now available in Canada, too. To go to QUINCE.com/JeffG for free shipping and 365-day returns. Quince.com/JeffG. Sandbox has received a release date. That's S ampersand box. It is going to be coming to Steam at the end of this month on April 28th. This is the follow-up to Garry's mod. And I have been loosely following the progress of Sandbox for, a couple of years now or something, but Garry's mod, if you're unfamiliar with it, it was a source engine mod that let you just kind of like spawn stuff from source engine games, and eventually a bunch of custom models and other things kind of were added to that as well. And Garry's mod was used in a lot of ways kind of before, I guess before Source Filmmaker became kind of like the go-to for animating source engine models and a lot of that stuff. Like, people would use Garry's mod to kind of pose characters and do things. You could also just kind of play it in real time and make vehicles and do all sorts of really kind of weird stuff. It had tools in there for, you want to attach rockets to a thing and then hook up controls so that you can make the rockets burst and everything. Do you want to add balloons to things to make it fly? And so you could make like these makeshift vehicles sort of in the same way as the Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom. Like you had these kind of like basic parts, and so you could get like a plank, like a big board, and attach ropes with balloons to it so that it floats a certain level, and then you could put rockets on it and then have the rockets fire in different directions to make it turn, and and then you can stand on that plank and fly around. And so that's mainly, eventually it also became a test bed, and people used it to make whole game modes and all these role-playing servers and Trouble in Terrorist Town and all of this other stuff as well. But I had a group of friends that we would just like get onto just like flat grass, like a big flat plane, and just make a bunch of stuff. And there was a tons of different mods for it that would add different tools, and the tool that always didn't work right was Advanced Duplicator. It was the idea of just like, okay, I made this like weird car and I want to make another one so we can both drive them, and Advanced Duplicator never worked. I never got it working right. It would always, something about it would fuck up. In the equivalent mode in Sandbox, you can duplicate all the stuff. It's great. But they've, there's a bunch of new stuff along those lines in terms of like if you just want to get in and put rockets on things and fly around and have like a silly time. And it's a multiplayer thing, so other players can kind of jump on the server with you and do a bunch of silly stuff. But like the thing that Sandbox does that Garry's mod didn't is Sandbox really leans hard into other people's games. When you launch it, it is a lot like the same thing when you launch Fortnite nowadays or Roblox. Like it is very much like, here's a hub of all of the different games that people have made, and you can just launch right into one of those. You just click the button, it'll download all the assets it needs, and you'll be on a server, potentially playing with other people that are running that game, within like a minute or less. And so I spent the weekend playing a fair amount of Roblox to kind of like compare and contrast the two, because Sandbox has a lot of the kind of same concepts, and some of the same types of games have made their way into Sandbox over time that you find on Roblox, but it also doesn't. It's interesting. So when you go and when you look at Roblox, when you look at kind of the basic game or the basic character controls or of the other things that are kind of inside of Roblox, a lot of what you see is stuff that feels very informed by MMOs, kind of like standard third person, PC game controls where you're holding down right mouse to move the camera around. If that tells you what it is, where you got a hot bar with your inventory on it. Depends on the game, but like a lot of the stuff I was playing on Roblox, if you had an inventory, it would show up in a bar at the bottom, and so there were a lot of parallels there between like the basics of like MMO character control, and all of that. Whereas Sandbox, like Garry's mod before it, is very informed by Valve, like by the Source engine, which was of course used to make Half-Life, among other things. And so it's like the same types of games and the same types of concepts you'll see between the two things, but one is a lot more rooted in first-person shooter style controls and movement, whereas one is a little more rooted in the kind of MMO style third-person movement, which is, developers can make massive changes to that and kind of make whatever they want, but generally speaking, that's kind of how it works. And Roblox is on phones, obviously, and there's a whole control paradigm there that they have to kind of be able to translate across multiple platforms and whatever. So like the needs of Roblox at the moment are a little bit different. Sandbox is really fascinating because they're not quite there yet, but they've done a lot of the legal wrangling with Valve in particular, to where the idea is you will be able to make something. So there's a couple of ways. If you are making games and you want to make a game inside of this framework, inside of Sandbox, you can make it inside of Sandbox, and there can be there are ways for you to earn money there inside of that ecosystem, but also they basically are building towards having a framework that lets you export the games out of Sandbox, and you could place them directly on Steam as a standalone item and sell it or do kind of whatever you want with it from there, which I find really fascinating, and it makes me wonder what's going to happen there. There's been some interesting stuff made in Sandbox so far, but it's I don't know. Like the game I'm playing the most is called Sand Miner, and you are digging and you are making money from the blocks you're digging, and you're upgrading the things so you can dig faster, and so it is sort of an incremental game. And I feel like a lot of the stuff that, like I saw in Roblox, I guess I didn't realize how much of the stuff that like Roblox is pushing on kids are really just like fucked up, like monetized in the worst possible ways, like incremental games, if not idle games straight up, like then games that are where you are just trying to make the numbers go up. and the mechanics around that are really kind of largely in service of that. So, like you see some of that in Sandbox, but it's a game that's been around for a couple of years, Sandbox, I mean, and they're selling some cosmetics. And so, they're selling, like there is a store kind of outside of the games where you design your character, and like Roblox, you can buy hats and you can buy fucking pants or whatever else. And the idea is that, like, if you're making a game inside of Sandbox, you could potentially earn a cut of the cosmetic sales, not necessarily your own cosmetics for your own game exclusively, but just the overall pot of money coming in. It sounds like they'll be kind of divvying some portion of that up to the people that are making games inside of that space, which is interesting. But it feels like a landscape where there has not really been a major hit breakout game, and the game's not out yet. It's not out until the 28th. And so it's been a process of, like, you can go to their website and apply for access. And now that the game has an actual release date, they're going to basically strip access from some people who made something in the game. They're going to maintain access to the game, and whatever, it'll probably be like $20 or something when it comes out, if they, whatever they end up doing, or maybe it'll actually be free. I don't actually know. But they're going to pull access from people that have not played it recently. So if you've played a lot of Sandbox recently, they will probably just let you keep it and go from there. But it's got coin pushers, and it's got a variety of incremental games and some driving games. It has a big kind of role-playing thing. A big city environment where people are doing crimes, like they're kind of trying to make something that is perhaps GTA Online adjacent. And that seems to be a fairly popular thing to do inside of Sandbox right now. Along with Sandminer, the thing that I'm doing, feels like it has been quite popular. And by quite popular, I mean like sometimes 30 people are playing it. So they're not hitting the same numbers that a Roblox is. Roblox is a scary thing. I ended up streaming some Steal a Brain Rot last week. And Steal a Brain Rot is a game inside of Roblox, and there are a number of other games like it. And it's a really weird. There's multiple facets to this, because like it starts with the kind of the brain rot thing, which, if you're not familiar with Italian brain rot, it is I'd say it's about a year old from the limited amount of investigation I did into the origins of Italian brain rot. But it's a thing that is just kind of memes. It's not really like a centralized, like this, except for the part where people are just using AI to generate like garbage images. There is something about the Italian brain rot thing that is actually kind of neat. But it also kind of makes me sad. So there are a lot of games concerning these different Italian brain rots, because they're AI generated. They can't be copyrighted in a general sense. And so the characters that people are making as part of this trend are across all of these different games from all of these different manufacturers. If you want to see fucking Gangster Futera is in a lot of these different games. That you know him, you love him. Gangster Futera is out there, and I found, like, I was reading through some of the, there's like a catalog of different Italian brain rots and all of this everything, and there's like there was a wiki I was looking at that had a page classification that was like Italian brain rots whose creators have attempted to copyright them. And so they if you use these in your games, you might hear from someone or whatever. But the Italian brain rot thing is like, okay, they are making a bunch of silly characters. Like it's a gumball machine with a face who's riding a bicycle. or it's a fucking armadillo that's popping up out of a watermelon. So there's like a hole in a watermelon and a little animal poking his head out. Or what else, man? Fucking but basically the Italian brain rot, the Italian comes from them trying to just add the words zini or ini or whatever to the ends of a name. So you got a monkey and it's called, chimpanzini watermelonini or whatever. And so it's a chimp poking out of a watermelon. That's not a real one, but there are, but there's a lot of, but that is the basic concept here, right? Is it's just some fucking dumbass fucking memes, and the AI voice from TikTok says these names real dumb, and haha, everybody's laughing. Yes, sorry, it's just chimpanzini bananini, among other things. But it just, as I kind of stared at these things for a good long time over the weekend and kind of dug into, whether it was the origins of it or whatever, but just found myself looking at a lot of these different fucking things. Like I kind of like on one hand, I'm like, the kids are the kids. And then on the other hand, I was like, you know what? Like I'm sad because all of this shit is fake. And like it's a bunch of weirdos making money on it at a second order, kind of outside of the origins of them, because of the AI origins of these characters and the lack of copyright and everything else. You've got these kind of people running in and using these characters to make money inside of Roblox, which is and Fortnite and also Sandbox, but primarily in Roblox. In ways that are insanely predatory, in the ways that only Roblox can be. Whereas when you look at this stuff, I found myself looking at it and going like, dude, like these are just garbage pail kids for a new generation, but they aren't cards, and they don't all come from one source. It's just a bunch of people made this stuff, and then they kind of got stolen, but they were AI anyway. So it's like, they're stolen anyway. There's no land acknowledgement that's going to make that fucking feel okay. And so like the origins of this shit is already kind of fucking fucked to begin with. And so all the way down, this stuff is just filthy. Or Mad Balls. I love me some Mad Balls. Not as much as I liked Garbage Pail Kids, but there were just a lot more Garbage Pail Kids, And there was some, sometimes you would find some genuine artistry on a Garbage Pail Kid. And so I don't know. Once I started thinking about it in that context, the whole thing felt like it made more sense on the kid end as to why kids would be into this shit. The same way that kids of the 70s or whatever were into like, wacky packages or whatever else. But the business or the exploitation end of it, I think, is way fucking nastier. Because in some cases it's just people generating these characters and then those traveling across all of these different games, and then the nature of Roblox is foul. The nature of Roblox is like disturbing. And like there are a number, because of the lack of copyright protection around any of this brain rot shit to begin with, there are like a dozen different games on Roblox, at least. I mean, there's probably hundreds. But like, that have risen above a certain number of players. There's a handful of them that have done so. And then there are similar games on Fortnite, and then I found one on Sandbox the other day, last night actually, that I was playing for a little bit and going like, this is fucking terrible. There was one game I play. I'm gonna try to. You might hear a Windows noise here when Auto HDR kicks in here, but there is a game on Roblox that is called My Scamming Brain Rots, A lot of these games are the same in that they are idle games, they're incremental games, and so you're accruing money even when you're not logged in, and so you log back in, get your money, spend it on upgrades, log out, whatever. My scamming brain rots is like there's a conveyor belt, and a lot of these games have similar kind of, that's kind of the other thing, is like the brain rots are stolen and dirty, and then all of these games have the exact fucking same mechanics chopped up in slightly different ways. And so Steal a Brain Rot and My Scamming Brain Rots have both by different creators, but like there's a conveyor belt in the middle where eggs travel along, and you get the eggs in My Scamming Brain Rots. I'm sure I sound very sane and fucking grounded and normal, right? This is all like a very normal conversation to have. You grab these fucking eggs and you put them in your base, and then they hatch into brain rots. In this one, the brain rots sit at computers because they're scamming people. And so, you know, they're throwing cards onto another conveyor belt, and that builds up money for you to then spend on more eggs or upgrades that get you money faster or whatever, right? That game is maybe the worst, nastiest level of monetization I have ever seen inside of a Roblox game, because of the frequency of pop-ups that it will throw at you. Now, a ton of games have like filthy pop-ups and stuff like that. Like in Steal a Brain Rot, if you get trapped in another player's base, if you walk up to the base door and hit the open button, it then pops up a thing saying, hey, you need to spend 99 cents if you want to open this door. And it's fucked. In My Scamming Brain Rots, if you try to hit the, like, there's a upgrade button you hit to upgrade a brain rot so that it makes more money per second. Because remember, a lot of these are idle game style concepts, and so everything's earning a set amount of money per second, and you upgrade them so that they earn more money per second, so that you can buy more eggs, so that you can upgrade your base, so that you can buy more brain rots, so you can upgrade your base, blah, 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 blah. If you don't have enough money for an upgrade and you hit the upgrade button, it pops up a thing saying, do you want to buy some currency? Everything you do, if you hit the button one too many times, it pops up a window saying, do you want to buy some stuff? Like at every turn, it is invoking the Roblox buy some Robux interface with a frequency that should be fucking illegal. With a frequency that, like, Roblox themselves, those shameless fucks that make this thing, should at some point have just enough shame or fear of reprisal or whatever to look at this and go, dude, this is too much. If you're popping, if there are things that a player can do in your game that can pop more than 5 fucking different microtransaction opportunities within a minute or whatever, like, you've gone too far. Roblox is inherently predatory on multiple levels. We're not even talking about the sexual predators and all of that stuff. They keep talking about that like they're doing things about it. And it doesn't ever seem like it's quite enough. They have made it so you have to, like, scan your face and stuff to use chat. And if you're above a certain age, you won't be able to talk to players below a certain age. And they're trying to group chats into different buckets that way or whatever. But on top of that, there's the part where Roblox gets a cut of all of those sales, right? And so they're not really incentivized to step in and go, hey, microtransactions are not new. There are some best practices that we think are probably the best way to do this, that are fair ways to do it, that use, let's say, an acceptable number of dark patterns and filthy, like there's just none of that. And so the Wild West nature of this stuff, combined with, the fucking meme status of the brain rots, which I imagine that stuff is that will pass, right? It always does. As much as we love the Italian brain rots, they are not eternal. But seeing all of this stuff form in something resembling a perfect storm of monetization and all of this other stuff is extremely disturbing. And it's stuff that, again, I think, you know, like, it's very easy. A lot of us out there have done this where, you know, like, a lot of people have never seen Roblox for themselves and just like, oh, it's bad and it's ruining games and it's doing this and it's doing that. Like last week when we were playing Steal a Brain Rot and streaming it, which that video is on YouTube if you want to see that fucking thing. There were like 600,000 other people playing it at that time. It was spring break week and, you know, kind of early afternoon East Coast time and whatever else. There were 600,000 people playing Steal a Brain Rot. I've not seen it hit those numbers since then. But it is 200,000, 300,000, like all of that other stuff. Bryn says it peaked at 1.5 million when the new update came out. Imagine that. All of you people out there that are like focused on Steam DB and the Steam player numbers and like, oh, look at this and this is a dead game. Look at that. 1.5 million players playing an experience inside of Roblox. Now think about what chance the video game industry might have over the next 10 years when we talk about whether it's concurrent player numbers or we think about, you know, what happens to kids and when they grow out of this, or do they grow out of this, or what happens? That's millions of players seeing a variety of experiences. Like even Steal a Brain Rot, as like, you know, gilded as it is, you know, as compared to the average Roblox experience, it still has like a level of microtransaction pop-ups in it that you would look at and go, this is crazy. It's only once you see the true dregs of Roblox that you go, oh, actually Steal a Brain Rot is maybe minimal compared to some of this other shit. And whatever, I don't want to get super doom and gloom and end of the world stuff, because like the experience in and of itself, and I think this is the interesting thing about looking at Sandbox, because Sandbox doesn't have those types of monetization hooks in it yet. I don't know if it will. I don't know what the, you know, like I don't know that they've said a lot of stuff, and I know Face Punch has made so much money on their other games that in some ways they kind of don't give a fuck about like that part of this to the same degree, which is, I don't know, admirable, I suppose. But like long term, I wonder like where does that thing, what direction does that thing go in? And so it's been very interesting seeing these types of frameworks for smaller game experiences and the different ways in which they approach making money, or the way they approach how they could deal with a young audience and whatever else. And so seeing Sandbox, which is in some ways it is a PC game and it is the Wild West, and you know, like voice chat is sometimes a problem, and I joined a sand miner server and a naked man walked up to me and you know, and started yelling slurs over voice, and I was like, this sucks. What the fuck is this bullshit? Fortnite feels like they moved in this direction out of desperation. Like it makes whether it's the layoffs or whether, you know, the layoffs in conjunction with it's like, hey, Fortnite's seen kind of a downturn. Like when you look at the UEFN stuff and you look at the Robloxification, the platformification of Fortnite into more of a user generated content kind of playground, it becomes much easier to see like a level of desperation inside of Fortnite that you don't necessarily get if you're just watching the trailers and going like, the Simpsons, everybody loves those guys, we got to get in there, we got to thank the bus driver Bart Simpson. Like you don't really see that part of the dark part of that if you're just kind of looking at the pop culture tie-ins and whatever else. It'd be easy to want to write off something like Roblox as like, you know, and this is, I'm a little too old for this as well, but like in a lot of ways, the popularity of Roblox, because it's free to play and free to download and it runs on so many different devices, it feels a lot like the era of Newgrounds and Flash games and all of the different Flash game portals that existed, 20 years ago, 25 years ago. And all of the kids that were raised on that. Because again, those games were free. It was very easy for a kid to open up a web browser and play whatever the fuck those were. And sometimes you would see games on those services that you're just like, this is, what the hell? This is like, this is not appropriate for kids at all. And there were things about those portals that were certainly not friendly. But also there was a lack of sophistication in terms of how to monetize games back then that made those spaces and in multiplayer server-based blah blah blah, like that stuff had not been figured out to a degree that kids were getting fucking double barrel buckshot fucking predatory shit shot at them 12 times an hour or whatever. Like Roblox in a lot of ways is that perfect storm of like, oh no, like there's some kids ain't gonna get out of this. And I don't mean in like, oh, they're not going to grow out of it, and they're not going to go on to buy Naughty Dog's latest $70 event. I don't mean like, game industry, whatever. I mean like, there's just shit about this that's going to be so off-putting they're never going to want to touch a video game again. There's going to be the stuff that's predatory. There's going to be the stuff that's financially predatory, and I think a lot of it is really. Scary is sometimes, maybe scary is the right word here. Filthy for sure. But it's the thing that, it's the thing to kind of remember and to keep in the back of your minds when prices on consoles go up, as they go up more and more. I think like you have a certain class of player, a traditional player, players above a certain age, whatever, that just kind of look at it and go like, oh, well, what, yeah, this is too much money. What's going to happen? But like, we've been past a point now where like younger kids are not going to be able to afford to buy these consoles, and games have gotten more expensive. And so the ever present nature of free to play, is something that they can do, is something they can engage with, and is something they can find new experiences in all the time. And that road, I think, eventually leads you to Roblox. If you have no money to spend on games, or a very limited amount of money to spend on games, and you're not going to get out there and buy a fucking Xbox, you're not sitting there going like, well, Game Pass is a good value, or like, no, you're so far away from that even that you're just like, I don't know, school gave me a laptop and I know how to run some games on it. And you're just kind of looking for something to do, or you have a phone because, at some point you will need a phone. Society has dictated it, so you will have a phone. And so free to play obviously exists there. And it has for years, but like free to play mobile games have never, have never crossed the line in the ways that some of these Roblox games do. Like I said, free to play mobile games, like that's an industry. Those are companies trying to find ways to monetize teens, and like in a traditional sense, in a quaint sense. Roblox, there's no law anymore, because all this stuff is just made by people, and Roblox just kind of collect rent, on other people's made experiences, and they provide the framework for you to charge that money. And so some developers of those games are just going to go, yeah, and I'm going to put a fucking button in here every chance I get, on the off chance that some kid just goes, oh, okay. And they just happen to have Robux in their account and want to buy that thing. It's, like, I don't know, this is all stuff I think we kind of talked about last time Roblox came up a number of months ago, but it's not something that's getting better. And, when we talk about the lawsuits and some of the other things that Roblox has been facing, it has been around the child safety end of things. And I don't want to undermine that or belittle that or hand wave that away in any way. All I'm saying is I think that there is a double whammy of predatory nature on this platform. And right now, these lawsuits, and right now, like, they're only really focusing on one of them. Which is, you know, that is, if you had to pick one, that's the one to pick. But I think that, like, the nature of the platform, the lack of guidance, or I guess like the lack of rules or enforcement or whatever from Roblox when it comes to ways these games are monetizing, I think that stuff is really fucked. I think that stuff is really, really fucked. And I feel like there needs to be a reckoning on that side as well. Like Roblox is the ultimate predator, man. It's fucking like it's just like the way that thing is built, the online nature of it, the way it is all focused, like makes it really good at that side of things. And then the lack of oversight, or seeming lack of oversight when it comes to the way that those games try to extract money from kids, I think is extremely fucking crazy. Like, you look at it and go like, how can this be fucking legal? And obviously, like, you know, look at the world we're in and what is legal and illegal. And, you know, like, we've got things that look like war crimes being committed in broad fucking daylight on the goddamn news every fucking day. Like, there's perhaps bigger fish to fry, but it's really fucking insane to, like, look at Roblox and go, how did this get this far? How was this allowed to get as big as it did without someone stepping in and going like, this is fucking, like, holy shit, what are you doing? Like it's really, it's shocking. It's shocking. Like, even after all we've been through with monetization and all free to play and everything for all these years, there are still things inside of Roblox that I see and I'm like, I can't fucking believe that this is something that they're putting in front of kids and putting in front of people of any age. It's really, it's crazy. It's fucking crazy. Anyway, Sandbox is out April 28th. I think it's really neat, and it's not full of that shit the way Roblox is, and I'm curious to see. I think it will appeal to a different audience, perhaps a slightly older audience, and obviously it's not on phones, and there's I think there's a lot of really wild shit out there that is you know, like should probably be regulated at some point, because of the number of kids that are available to, you know, because of the number of kids that can engage with this platform and the prevalence of the platform and all of that sort of stuff. Let's take a break. We'll come back. We'll talk about this mouse I bought and, you know, Jaws after this. NordVPN is the leading VPN service trusted by millions of internet users worldwide. It offers a comprehensive solution for online security and privacy. What does this mean? You know, NordVPN encrypts your online traffic and protects your online activity from third parties and prying eyes. You know, you can browse, you can work, you can just be a little bit safer on the internet knowing that encryption is working for you. It can also scan any downloaded files for malware. It'll do some ad blocking. It'll block some intrusive web trackers. And it'll detect some phishing links to help keep you safer. And if your stuff shows up on the dark web, they'll let you know. They can look for any information linked to your email address and let you know if any of that stuff is happening. But NordVPN also lets you unblock restricted websites using its obfuscated servers. Now, what this means is, you know, you can look like you're somewhere else in the world if you want to appear that you're in the UK or Japan or whatever to access regional services, or even like avoid price discrimination in some cases. You know, they're charging different prices in different regions or offering some services. I know for a good long time, I was using NordVPN to pay for a foreign wrestling service that was not available here in the United States. And it was fantastic. Worked like a charm. You can keep multiple devices safe with just one account. Nord lets you stay logged in on 10 different devices. And they've got 24/7 customer support if you need help. To get the best discount off your NordVPN plan, Go to nordvpn.com/Jeff Gerstmann. This link will also give you 4 extra months on the 2-year plan. There's no risk with Nord's 30-day money-back guarantee. The link is in the podcast episode description box. Check it out. Jaws is back in video game form. They have released Jaws Retro Edition. This is something that I think is limited run games made it. It seems like it's primarily built around like get a physical cartridge or get a this or get a that, but like this is on Steam. And it is a reissue of the NES hit, the NES classic. It is Jaws. They re-released Jaws for the NES. It's stupid. It's like, I don't. But here's the stupidest thing about it. They made a new enhanced edition of Jaws for the NES. And added like a lot of mechanics and stuff to it that is actually pretty fucking impressive. Jaws is a game, when we were ranking it, when it made its way to the ranked list of NES games, I beat it in one shot, which was the first time I had ever beat Jaws. I'd played Jaws a handful of times, and I feel like it is a joke of a game. It's like you're in a boat and you sail back and forth between 2 points on the map to get upgrades, and you collect shells to get more upgrades, and eventually you have upgraded your power in such a way that you can shoot Jaws a bunch, and then you have to do this timing-based thing at the end to actually kill Jaws, and then it rolls credits and you're done, and you're like, what the fuck? This new enhanced edition of Jaws adds straight-up currency to it. It adds a shop where you can buy upgrades. It has like multiple people at the dock you can talk to, and it did little menus. There's not a bunch of like character sprites or whatever. It's all just kind of like text menus and stuff that are kind of like that feel like they were sort of hacked into the game in a certain way. But like you get multiple tiers of upgrades, and then you beat Jaws, which I did. I was like, well, I guess I'll just beat this game. I'm close to, like I'm doing so much damage to Jaws that like I feel I'll just finish the game again. They changed up the way the little end game thing works in ways that makes it easier to like it's a much more playable game. And then you beat Jaws, and then like time passes and like the game evolves and more layers are added on as you go and do it again. And they've got references to the different Jaws films along the way as you kind of do this. Like they have blown Jaws up into like a way bigger game. Like you in the original Jaws, you have like pretty rapid fire spears out of your spear gun when you're underwater doing it. When you're underwater shooting fish and stuff to get money. They make that an upgrade. Like you have to upgrade to get like multi-shot capability or rapid fire. Like they've added like a bit of an upgrade tree to the game. They have made it so when you're out on the water sailing around, it's mostly random encounters. Like it'll just say we've hit something, and then you go into a fight sequence and you shoot some stuff for a while. They have made it more like the Legend of Zelda 2: The Adventure of Link, or Zelda 2: The Adventure of Link, if you want to. Where you will get an upgrade that lets you see those random encounters on the map around you. And you can choose to, interact with them or try to dodge them or whatever. I don't think Jaws is a great game. I don't think that these updates have necessarily turned Jaws into a great game. But the very idea that someone, which my understanding is that it was one Jeremy Parrish, that someone was allowed to sit down and fucking add a bunch of shit to fucking Jaws for the NES is one of the dumbest uses of money I can ever think of, and God bless him for it. It's super impressive. It's the dumbest thing you can do. We're going to sit down and, we're going to fix Jaws for the NES. What? Why would you do this? They did it, and it's actually super neat. As someone who has been using Jaws for the NES as something of a punchline for, let's call it, 25 years now. I am blown away that this exists at all. The rest of the package, it has like the tiniest little bit of concept art. It's like I hate it. The one of the things I hate about a lot of these reissued collections of old games is they go and they say, we got all the box art. Do you want to look at the box art? And then you load up the box art and they have photoshopped out all of the Nintendo logos and all of the copyrighted stuff they can't use. And so you just have these large sections of the box that are just like a big white block or whatever. The Marvel collection that came out did this in a real shitty way too. So like that stuff's no good. Like I don't feel like you're not getting this for the museum content, because I don't think there's an amazing museum of like, just tell me the context about Jaws for the NES. Like, you know, there's no, though I would watch that and I would love to participate in that. If someone shot a Digital Eclipse style documentary on Jaws for the fucking NES, that would maybe be the dumbest thing they could possibly do. Anyone involved could do. But the idea that there is now an enhanced edition of Jaws for the NES and that it adds like a ridiculous, like for when you consider the original game, like they've stretched it out to probably about four times its length or so, with upgrades and new dialogue and a lot of stuff that you see along the way. That's crazy. That is just crazy. And so I want to salute this. I want to salute this bad idea, and you might want to take a look at it. If you like bad ideas the way I like bad ideas, let me tell you, this was a bad idea, and incredibly well done, given given the offset of how bad an idea this is, and how again, I'm not saying that they have turned this into like some amazing video game and like 8-bit is back, you know, but like it for what they have done for Jaws here is, if this had come out if this was the original game that was released, it would have made a lot more sense. It would have been a lot more coherent as a product, and it would have been a significantly better game. So that's if you are the exact sort of person that hears that and goes, huh, you should absolutely fucking buy it and check this thing out. It's so crazy. It's so crazy that it exists. And then I just got this in yesterday because they were back ordered for like a month. I got this is Logitech's mouse. It is the Pro X2 Superstrike. And the main appeal here, the main draw to this mouse is that it has haptics on the buttons. Sort of like, do you remember, and maybe, I don't know if you were buying iPhones the way I was buying iPhones, but do you remember when they took the physical button out of the iPhone and just put a dent where there should be a button? And so when the phone is turned off, you press it and nothing happens, and you're just like, I don't know, it's just like a little solid surface. And then when the phone is turned on, the way the haptics work, you touch it and go like, oh shit, this is like a physical fucking button. What the hell? Like, it is indistinguishable from the way a button would feel. That is sort of what they're doing here. Except the buttons, there is a physical movement to the mouse buttons on this mouse, but it's a very short throw. It does not move very much. And they have enhanced that with the same types of haptics. It is so yes, some people are saying like the Apple Magic Mouse. I think the Apple Magic Mouse felt bad. I kind of felt like it always felt kind of crummy. So I would say no, not like that. It feels good. But it is a similar concept. Yes, it is haptics in a mouse. And I kind of put it through its paces for a couple hours last night, playing Well, I had to steal all these brain rots. No, I ended up playing some marathon, some other stuff, and kind of going through, some shooter type things. And it's a neat mouse. It's not $200 worth of neat, I would say. And also for my big hands, it feels a little small. It feels like a slightly small mouse in my hand, and I'm not sure that I'm going to be able to continue to use it on account of it does not feel big enough. But the haptics on the buttons feel pretty good. And the short throw, like I was thinking like maybe this short throw on the mouse would make it kind of more comfortable. And make it a little bit more comfortable in the hand. But in my experience, like the size of the mouse is kind of offsetting whatever comfort enhancements the short throw on these buttons gain, and so it's sort of a weird trade-off there. I'm not really sure if I'm going to keep using it. I was using a G502X before that, which is a fine mouse. I don't know. But I thought I would try the haptic buttons and all of that cool stuff. And I think that the haptics are really neat. The haptics are really neat. It's a cool idea that I would like to see more of. But I would like to see it in a slightly bigger mouse, I guess I would say. You know what? Let's take our last break here, and then we'll come back and we'll get into the news right after this. Packing up for a trip. It's a hassle. I don't know, like you're making counts in your, how many pairs of socks do I need to bring? 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, 6 pairs of socks. No, I'll wear 1 pair back. So I guess it's 5 pairs. Doing all this stuff. And then you get to the tech part of it, and you're like, okay, I need a charger. I need the charging cable for my watch. I need the charging cable for my phone. I need another charging cable for my headphones. What if I need a plug? Okay, we got to get this ROG Ally. You need a high power charger. Okay, we need to bring all the cables for this. It's a nightmare. And you always forget one, and it all goes bad. That's why the Ridge power bank is so rad. It's got MagSafe wireless charging. It can charge your Apple Watch. It's got a lightning cable. It's got USB-C. All the ways you need to charge, all in one premium device. So no more juggling adapters and all the wall outlets at the airport that are just like, I don't know, you plug it in and it just slips right out. What happens to those jacks at the airport? The power, you plug it in and it just slips right. It's bad. Whatever it is, it's not good. The Ridge power bank has 20 watts of power, charging your phone as fast as it possibly can. And with 10,000 milliamp hours capacity, you've got up to 3 full phone charges right in your pocket. And with that MagSafe compatible wireless charging, you can actually just slap it on the back of an iPhone and use it like it's an extra big battery. Like everything else that Ridge makes, it's built to last with free shipping and 99-day risk-free trial and a lifetime warranty. It's the last power bank you'll ever need. It's got a nice look to it. It looks like real custom. It doesn't look like some middle-of-the-mall ass charger, It's got a good LED charge status indicator. Lets you know where it's at any given time. It's got a kickstand on it, so, you can use the MagSafe thing. Like if you're looking to prop your phone up, it's cool. It's cool. It's one thing to pack, and it's 5 ways to power. You can find Ridge's power bank at Best Buy, or you can get 10% off at ridge.com by using the code JeffG at checkout. Just head to ridge.com and use the code JeffG, and you are set. After you purchase, they'll ask you where you heard about them. Support the show. Tell them that this show sent you. PlayStation is not content with scans of your ears. Now they want your whole face, if not your whole body. This morning, the PlayStation blog introduced something called the Player Base. Introducing the Player Base, bringing PlayStation's biggest fans into blockbuster PlayStation Studios games. This is like a, hey, do you want to be in the game type of thing? It's a contest. It's not even a, like, when I first saw this, I was like, oh, fuck this. Do they do they just want you to scan yourself and upload it to a database where they will keep it forever and then maybe use it, maybe not? No, it is not that. This is way more like a contest. Currently, they're going to do something with Gran Turismo 7. And so you can go submit your application to the player base. They will ask you a few questions about your experiences on PlayStation. They will also ask for your PSN account because it seems like they want to do, like, I don't know, people that have, it's like a loyalty program. It feels like something where they want to try to pick someone who's like diehard, dyed-in-the-wool PlayStation fanatic because that's a good story for them or whatever. But they're doing that as part of the application process, and then finalists will go on to video interviews to learn about them and their connection to PlayStation. One person will be selected to be featured in Gran Turismo 7. And this is even just, this sounds like a lot to go through for something that is relatively minor in a game that's been out for years. One person will be selected where they will have a special limited time appearance as an in-game character portrait, similar to how characters are presented throughout the game. And they have a screenshot as an example where it's not even like a scanned model. It is just a photo that sits in the center of the screen with like a, hey buddy, do you want to go to the cafe and look at cars in the rain? Like, it's just like that sort of thing. But even that is apparently going to be limited, a limited time event here. The selected fan will also help design a custom fantasy logo and a one-of-a-kind vehicle livery, which will be added permanently to the showcase menu. They will be invited to a visual arts studio in Los Angeles for a scanning day and collaborate with a designer to create their fantasy logo and vehicle livery. Over time, we look forward to expanding the player base as additional PlayStation studios participate, having fans featured in ways that fit each game's own style and world. Stay tuned for more updates. So, I don't know, you could be an NPC, a silent NPC in some game somewhere, maybe, eventually. Like if the lady from this Naughty Dog space game goes to a planet and there's a bunch of people walking around, maybe you could be one of the people. I don't know. This seems, it's an interesting thing to be doing at like a platform level as opposed to an individual game kind of contest or whatever. But it is a contest, and it sounds like they're making you jump through a bunch of hoops to like prove that that you love the PlayStation. In order to be selected as a winner here, because I assume that means they want to have like a really good marketing story here to be like, this diehard fan of PlayStation is now in Gran Turismo, and like now they're in Intergalactic, whatever the like, I guess when I first read the like initial, when I saw people kind of reacting to this stuff, I thought that they were literally like, hey, scan your head and then maybe we'll use it in a game, and we'll take scans from your webcam or your phone or whatever. I thought it was literally them just like building a database of facial scans. And I was like, that's the like scariest thing in the world that anyone has ever announced. Like, did fucking Palantir put you up to this? What the fuck is going on? But it is just a fucking contest. It's just a, hey, we're doing a contest, and if you want to be in the game, you can be in the game. I think that makes sense. I don't know. Like some games, like when they, how many NPC faces are in Spider-Man? What if one of them was you? Sure. If that's something you want, like, go for it. That seems totally fine. But they are doing that now. They are taking signups for this. Though at the time, and I'll check now to see if it's changed. Okay, good. When I checked this morning, they had a button on their sign up page that said rules, like the governing rules for what they were doing, and that page was not there. And so all of the legalese and boilerplate stuff about this stuff was not there. It is there now. By participating in this contest, each entrant agrees to allow the sponsor and the promotion entities to use their PlayStation Online ID, social media handles, and avatar in connection with the reasonable publicity of the contest on PlayStation channels. So you are signing over some form of rights to some limited cut of your likeness for some of this stuff. Let's see. PlayStation employees are not allowed to enter. Entries must not... By entering, you warrant that your entry does not contain any third-party copyright materials and does not violate or infringe the copyrights, trademark rights, rights of publicity, or any other rights of a third party, blah, 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 blah. Entries must not contain any racial, sexist, homophobic, religious, or ethnic slurs, explicit language, obscene, pornographic, violent, or sexual content, libel, hate speech, references to alcohol, drugs, or other illicit substances, or otherwise unlawful or inappropriate content as determined by sponsor in its sole discretion. So, yeah. Take that. Yeah, and just standard stuff. Like, they're looking for people that they can put into games and then say, look at this, the fans, like, you matter. Like, it's just like that kind of a marketing campaign on the back of a user contest or whatever. I think what they're doing is they're covering their base in case later on they say like, oh, we're going to provide some assets from our game and we want you to make a thing out of it, and then we'll pick the best ones to go in the game or whatever, and then you go and you put the fucking guy from fucking Tapper in it. And you're like, I made a logo, and it's just the guy from Tapper with his curly mustache and all of that other stuff. And then they get sued by, I guess, Warner Brothers, I guess Paramount, whoever the fuck owns Tapper. Why am I thinking about Tapper? Couldn't tell you. But here we are. Speaking of tapping shit, 110,000 mixed Steam reviews later, Nexon bluntly puts the First Descendant in the did not work category. Strong launch, no staying power. That's the headline from Games Radar. Nexon put out a kind of their it was sort of a quarterly update, a briefing. And in the briefing, they basically said, yeah, man, First Descendant, that's a failure. That's a failure. They put it in, like, literally they broke games up into categories, and it was in the category of what did not work. Yeah, that's as someone who played a lot of that, I can tell you that game was no good. They said about it specifically, they also this was lumped in a category with Dungeon and Fighter Mobile, which they say launched with terrific momentum in 2024, then lost its way. The retention mechanics weren't strong enough to hold players long term. And then they added, same issue with the First Descendant, strong launch, no staying power. These are design issues that are not fixed with a patch. They require structural changes to game mechanics. And I guess I would say it's rare that you see a company come out and say, hey, yeah, there's like stuff we did here that like just straight up didn't work, and it's not something we can fix. The First Descendant is if you haven't seen it, which most people have not, it is a free-to-play third-person shooter where you play as a number of different characters that have a bunch of elemental attacks and stuff like that. And it has a story-driven campaign that you finish. And that was all there on day one. Everything they've done since then has been trying to find, and it's the limitations of live service, right? Like, the game launched with its best content. Everything they've, and I'm not even going to tell you that content is great. Actually, that content is not very good, but it was at least a story to play through and experience and finish with unique encounters along the way. All of the content they added after that was, there's a ship that reconfigures itself every time you click this button, and you should run that. You should do this event 800 times in a row to farm materials out of it so that you can make a dog. And then the dog will be able to sell items for you, whatever it is. And so like that type of content is hard to make. The easier content that they did end up making was like making more and more scantily clad skins for the ladies in the game. Most of the playable characters in the game are ladies with gigantic boobs. And so, of course, they did the Bayonetta crossover, and of course, they did the Nier Automata crossover, so that you could be 2B, or you could be 2B in exploded clothing mode, and then you could take exploded clothing mode and apply it to any of the other characters in the game, and make them all look like their clothing blew up. And so, it was a game where summertime's here and it's time to sell swimsuits for all the ladies who are going to go out into this snow level and shoot guns at aliens. What if they did it in bikinis? Or what if they did it in skimpy Christmas outfits? Or what if they did it in schoolgirl outfits? And this is the game, you may remember the last time I talked about this game is I watched one of their updates for one of their seasonal kind of new content drops, and the whole thing was about like, we made a lounge where the ladies will make eye contact with you and also you can see their feet. That's the game. That's what they tried to do to keep players on board. Whereas what it actually needed was more video game. Because the core of the video game was not awful. I compare it a lot to Outriders, which was not a great game either, but in terms of here's a shooter with some powers that you're kind of, I'm going to freeze this guy and shoot him and do this and, kind of synergizing these abilities. And like, there's stuff there that's like pretty okay as far as some encounter design or whatever. But unfortunately, you finish the story and you see all of the unique content in the story, which unique means like sometimes you're inside a spaceship, sometimes you're out in the snow, sometimes you're over here and there's lava. And like, it's not, at the end of the day, like it's not, some amazing fucking variety of content, but it is at least a story that is heading in a direction. And then the story content they've added post-launch has been minimal, like stuff you'll just blow through and doesn't really go anywhere and is more of a justification for them to add new characters to the game for you to buy. And so from where I'm sitting, again, as someone who, I don't know why, man, I can't fucking tell you why. I got it in my head when that game came out, or not long after that game came out, that it would be really funny for me to get every achievement in that game. Also, because it was a multi-platform and cross-save and everything, it was very easy to get all of the Xbox achievements and all of the PlayStation achievements and all of the Steam achievements in one go, because they stay synced up. And so I was like, well, fuck, dude, I'm going to get all these fucking achievements. This is going to be awesome. Awesome. And so I played quite a lot of that game. Over 100 hours, I would say. To get all of those achievements and all of that other stuff in a game that was like okay at best. He's like, okay, yeah. Like there are flashes in that game where you're like, actually, if I could do a lot more of this and this got harder and more engaging, like they would have something here. And then everything they did post-release straight up sucked, man. Like it was just a bunch of bad content, and then they leaned further and further and further into the skimpy outfit stuff. It was just like, I don't know, embarrassing for them. Like I don't, like whatever, man, who cares? I'm not sitting here going, I'm not looking down my nose going like, I can't believe that they made a booby game. Like who gives a shit? It's 2026. They should just go all the way. At this point, give me fully nude women with assault rifles, shooting ice out of their boobs, freezing alien monsters. Like, just fuck it, dude. Who cares? Kids shouldn't be playing this game anyway. You might as well just fucking show it. But, at the end of the day, this was a game that you saw it falling apart, and you saw the updates leaning further and further into just like shitty fucking bikini outfits and all of this other stupid shit. Like, oh, here's some more emotes of the girls bouncing up and down. Like, oh, okay, yeah, I see what you're doing. Yes, all for a game where like one of the first bosses' names is just Greg. And then you get Greg's rifle. It's literally like Greg's reversed whatever. Like the name of the gun is fucking Greg's fucking gun. Good work, Greg. But it's still, again, it is pretty rare that you see a studio come out and say this about a game that is still up and running. Usually this would be something you would say as the game is shutting down. And this to me says that they are probably going to shut it down. And they probably should, because clearly they think, again, the quote is, there are design issues with the game that are not fixed with a patch. They require structural changes to game mechanics. I could not agree more. It's a shame, because I think like underneath that, there is a cut of that. There's a skew of that game. There's you could carve out some part of that game and go like, this is actually kind of all right. But instead, they just tried to sell skins to a shrinking player base, you know, like a player base of people that like are out there like literally taking like there are people on Patreon, there are people on various services ripping the models out of the game and stripping them naked and making them fuck. You know, because it's a video game and it's 2026, right? So it's, you know, what are you gonna do? But I don't know, like that stuff just it's like there's zero appeal. There's zero appeal to that. But I guess like I don't know, fucking go to Reddit if you want to see that shit. If you know, like go look at the video game ladies naked. I'm sure Reddit is full of it. It was last time I looked. That was months ago. But that stuff's definitely out there. Here's a warning for Rule 34 on Reddit. It's, yeah, I mean, they passed the fucking Battleborn challenge, right? Congratulations. There's a story going around about the Mass Effect TV show, which I had forgotten had ever been announced. But of course they're making one of these. Amazon is involved in that. According to The Ankler, which is a website devoted to kind of covering television, that sort of industry. The current word on the Mass Effect show is that Amazon's head of television, this is from Eurogamer as well as IGN's reporting on this as well. But the Mass Effect series has not quite reached full order status because the head of television over at Amazon is saying they want to make the game more appealing to non-gamers. And so it is currently kind of sitting in limbo while we're waiting on that. That's kind of it. It's a really small mention in kind of a larger story about Amazon's episodic goals in, you know, crafting television or whatever. I think that's a perfectly normal thing to say if you're making a television show. Is, hey, this should probably have a wider appeal than just people who played the game. Especially for something like Mass Effect, which, you know, has been through the ringer a little bit. I think the thing that really breaks me on this whole concept is we're really looping back. There is an Ouroboros, there is a human centipede of just this shit traveling between mediums back and forth in ways that you just go like, why would you do this? You know, like, so they're going to make a Mass Effect television show. Mass Effect as a franchise was obviously inspired quite a bit by a lot of sci-fi television and film that came before it. And so like at some point as this loops around and around and around, why, you know, why would you do this? Like, I like the things I like about Mass Effect and its universe and its story that, you know, haven't been necessarily kind of fucking stomped on by BioWare's own releases are some of the same things I like about Star Trek. And so, you know, in a world where we have so many different sci-fi properties and an endless number of sci-fi properties that are, you know, whether it's The Expanse, which I'm told was originally a book, and all that. I don't know. Like there's so much other stuff out there that, like, the idea of we've got to make a Mass Effect television show just seems like a real fucking thin soup, man. Like, this has been filtered through so many different inspirations and everything else. The idea that they would make a Mass Effect television show at all, I find, like, just dumb. I don't know. Like, the things I want out of Mass Effect are interactive in nature. The thing that makes Mass Effect special, the thing that made Mass Effect special was you having choice. You know? And that they wrote a universe that felt like they took it seriously, you know? Like, when you go through the Codex, there are aspects of going through the Codex that feels like flipping through the Star Trek technical manual, and you're like, wow, they really spent some time thinking about the sci-fi, the reality of their fake reality, you know? And that's all cool, but that stuff is coolest when it is in service of making an interactive experience, because that's what makes Mass Effect unique. When you take all of this out, I mean, you're gonna you know, like, whatever, dude. If this television show has Shepard in it, and Shepard's a guy, there's gonna be a bunch of and if they have Shepard in it, Shepard will be a guy. Don't think that they're gonna do something interesting. But, like, they're already going to alienate some number of people who go like, that's not my Shepard. You know? So it makes sense that they would want to try to raise the appeal of this amongst non-gamers, right? Because that's, you know, of course. Like, if you just made this and only sold it to people who played the games, that's just not enough people. It's just not enough people. Even for the millions of people that played Mass Effect, like, you need to be aiming for a wider appeal than that, of course. So I don't know. Some people were like, oh, they're gonna ruin it. And blah. Like, dude, it's a Mass Effect television show. The thing that they sold Mass Effect on the idea of you being in charge of making the choices. You're gonna go watch a fucking series of a television show where, like, oh, what are they gonna walk around and go like, the Reapers are real, and then someone's, you know, some fucking old man's gonna go like, ah. Like, what? Fuck that, dude. Who cares? Who fucking cares? Mass Effect was good because you controlled it. They did all the work in service of you controlling it. Fuck this. Who cares? This is so stupid. For Mass Effect in particular, I think, because of how much that whole trilogy pivoted on your decisions. And granted, in some ways that's a very false premise, because your choices did not make the impact, and they did not we'll go through it again. They did not honor your choices to the degree that they should have by the time that trilogy was done. It's one of the main problems with it, right? But the promise of Mass Effect was that it was interactive. And so shoehorning that thing into just a television show, unless you're going to go the Netflix route and go like, we're making a choose your own adventure TV show, which would actually be pretty fucking awesome, but they'll never fucking do it. There's just fucking, yeah, I don't know. At some point it just feels pointless to me. It's an interesting universe, but, like, sci-fi is peppered with interesting universes. Like, it doesn't, like, that on its own does not feel like it's enough. I don't know if you've been following Marathon. There's been a lot of interesting patches that Marathon has received over the month or so that it's been available, and I feel like they're saying a lot of the right stuff about Marathon. Like, when they announce changes, or when they talk about their thinking behind the things they want to change about the game, I feel like a lot of that is very rooted in, like, I look at that and go like, oh, these are things that will probably make the game better. Yeah. These are things that will probably actually these are things that will probably actually benefit the game overall. And some of this stuff is like, I don't know if there's been a lot of use of bubble shields, which, is a big dome that appears around players. And, like that's become a big part of the meta, if you will. And so they're looking at changing things around that. They're also looking to, this is, again, from Eurogamer's kind of bundling of this information, because all of it kind of was the Joe Ziegler, the director of the game, posted a lot of this stuff to Twitter, and, it's kind of just been all over the place. But some of the things they want to change is bubble shields being too easy to get and too powerful to use. The knife scaling too easily to godlike power levels. The knife is very... The knife is very powerful. Thermal scopes being too present and dominant. Sniper rifles being too strong in all scenarios, as well as giving some kind of buffs to Vandal and Recon. And then a couple of changes here that they talked about that they haven't really given. I don't know. These are listed as secrets. 2 bullet points here. A new item to give solo players a more common option when downed. And a new item to give a more merciful option between crews. And I'm not sure what that... Like, that sounds interesting. And so I wonder if like maybe solo players will have greater access to self-revive. Because there are self-revives in the game, but playing solo, you need you need them, because there's no one can pick you up. If you're not playing on a team. A new item to give a more merciful option between crews. I don't know what that would refer to, but I think if they're going to try to evolve the game in ways, because right now the game is just like, it has been a murder factory, and I think I like that about it, because it takes the guesswork out of it. It takes the anxiety. It takes a certain amount of the social nature of these games out of it when everyone is just fucking down to shoot. But over time, I think that lessens the possibility space of the game overall. And so it makes me wonder if this is something where they're going to find ways to bring non-violent outcomes back, and put them kind of more on the menu than they have been otherwise, and what that might mean. And I think that is potentially very fascinating. Like I said, I think there's been a lot of stuff, like a lot of their patch notes and a lot of their discussion about the game, like, some of the movement stuff that they've taken out of the game, like the way they frame it is just like, hey, this is really neat, but it's actually like way out of line with what we think character speed max should be, and engagement ranges or whatever. Like, as they kind of make these changes, it doesn't feel like it's necessarily like, oh, this item is way too powerful. It's more like these encounters are happening a certain way, and we're seeing these encounters with these items and this sort of thing happening a little bit too often. And so I think that's a really fucking fascinating direction for them. I don't know, whatever. Like, I think I look at their patch notes and I am devouring them. I'm very excited by a lot of the stuff that they have done to the game so far, because a lot of it's like it's minor tweaks. They're not reinventing the wheel, because the wheel's already really fucking good. But it is stuff like, okay, we're seeing a lot of these encounter rates. Like, we're seeing a lot, like, again, the bubble shield is coming up a little too often. This item's coming up a little too often. People are gravitating towards these sorts of weapons and these sorts of attachments a little too frequently. And so we need to find ways to mix that up. And to me, that game is at its best when you're just going in with what you got. And trying to find ways to make it work. I think that is kind of the fun part about that game. It's not like having a favorite gun and, oh, I got to bring this, and, oh, if I don't have this, I need to go get one, and I need to, I spec in this direction on the skill tree so that I can buy them from the store, and I need this for that, and like I think that there's a lot of stuff there that again, like there's that idea of you go into battle with the army that you've got, you go into battle with the guns that you got, the stuff you have, and I think that is a really interesting an interesting way to play that game, and it's been fucking awesome. Like I'm still playing like a fair amount of Marathon, a little bit less so these past few days because I'm playing something else that we'll talk about next week. But man, what a fucking great game! What a fucking great game. Sony's been on a tear. They've removed another batch of catalog, another batch of games from a handful of publishers that are kind of like dumping a bunch of junk onto PSN. Eurogamers batched this up, and it's from a number of developers. VRC Forge, Go Game. I would say Go Game Console Publisher is actually the full name, and Welding Bite have had their entire catalogs ripped off of PlayStation Network. I think if you owned any of those games, you can still download them and play them. But like this is I think prevalent on on all of the storefronts. But on PlayStation, something happened over the past couple of years where there were a lot of games that were showing up with trophies that you could earn in like 5 minutes. And so it was like you were buying the game to just get a platinum trophy, and then they would release the same game like 20 times with mild change, like, oh, this one's got different levels, and this one's fucking, buttfuck coaster party number 20, and 21's got this in it, and 22's got this in it. And so people like absolute lunatics would buy these games, get their platinum trophies, and like I've got 100 platinum trophies, like just real aimless fucking real crazy behavior. I bought one of them a while ago just because I wanted to see this stuff in action, and like I played through it and got the trophies, and I was like, huh, yeah, I guess I see why. Like if you were in some death spiral with some other trophy fucking fanatic, and I've definitely been that person back in the early days of Xbox 360 achievements. I see why you would just say, fuck it, I'm going to buy all 20 of these games and fuck them. I got all these trophies now. I got all these platinums. My level's this. My level's, whatever. So a lot of that stuff has been completely ripped off the store. There's not really a lot of, like I think PlayStation made some kind of statement when they first started doing this around like, yeah, we're going to rein in trophy stuff. Like they kind of said, hey, we're going to make some changes to the way trophies can be assigned to games and distributed. And if we feel it's being abused, we're going to take action. And then they haven't really said much about this stuff individually, but it does seem like we're in the midst of, or maybe this is the end of it, but it does feel like we're in the midst of another wave of publishers having their entire catalogs just blown off the store. To which I say good on them. I think it's really hard. That's a really hard problem to solve, because you want to be open and inviting to independent developers, and you want to have more games on your platform, not less. And those policies, when abused by some of these companies, I think, is really a fucking bummer. But we've seen a number of developers abuse this sort of stuff, and it's good to see PlayStation taking some kind of action here. It's a little bit different on Nintendo because, and Xbox to a certain extent, where a lot of the slop kind of garbage that's shown up on those storefronts has been around like there was a game on Xbox. I don't know if it's still there, but it was just called like fucking Spider-Man or like Spider-Man's Adventure or whatever. But it was like, but not that Spider-Man, and you would load it up and it was just like, it was barely a fucking video game. And so then on the Switch eShop, you find all of these like fucking like they just straight up call them hentai games and all of this stuff, but like none of it has actual nudity. None of it really goes where you want it to go. And so it's just a bunch of fucking bad, like, I don't know, match threes or puzzle games or whatever, that are all based around you seeing a bunch of fucking drawings, like, of anime girls that are not actually nude because it is still the Nintendo eShop at the end of the day. But they try to sell it as like, look at this sexy thing. Not that stuff has to be naked to be sexy, I guess. Like, right? I don't know. Like it's, and then a lot of that shit is just AI generated now. Like this problem predates the popularity of AI image generation, but I feel like AI image generation has really brought this stuff into fucking hyperdrive, in a really fucking gross way. But yeah, I don't know. Like, good on Sony for ripping this stuff off the store. I think it's you have to figure out where your line is. That's always been the problem. Like there's been dog shit like stuff on all of these storefronts for years and years and years, and people have talked about like, oh well, maybe Sony should have but like they don't want to have like a hand in that level of content approval, because that would take forever, and it just opens them up to a bunch of like weird arguments about like what is a video game. Like, you don't want to be in the role of saying like, we don't think this is a real video game, or we think this game's bad and you're not allowed to publish it. Like, it's I don't know, it's like a hard fucking line to establish. But I think when you see these things that are just strictly there to abuse trophies, and they're barely fucking games, and like they're selling them these 20-minute experiences, if 20 minutes, I think it becomes a lot easier to step in and go like, yep, fuck this, all your shit is gone. And good on them for doing it. I found this, videogameschronicle.com is reporting that there's going to be a third Impossible Mission game, or rather Impossible Mission 3 is going to be coming out for the Commodore 64 this year. This is an officially licensed game. They have gone to the IP holder of the long-running Impossible Mission franchise, which you may remember, if not from the Commodore 64, then from a number of different ports of those games that are not nearly as good in most of those cases. Impossible Mission 2 made it to the NES, for example. These are games about, like, it is sort of a platformer-y sort of jumping around game, but you're also collecting puzzle pieces to try to stop the timer on a bomb or what. Look, man, I always had pirated copies of Impossible Mission, so I don't know shit about what you actually do in that game. But when you start it up and the guy talks, it's cool. And the animation of the dude doing a cool front flip when he jumps is rad. And so Impossible Mission is sort of a legendary game in a lot of ways. Impossible Mission 2, slightly less so. But now we're going to see Impossible Mission 3. This is from a new programmer that has been apparently known for making modern C64 games. There is still a scene of that out there, but this is going to be an officially licensed game that will be released in May. They will start taking pre-orders for their physical editions in May, but it will be released digitally May 18th of this year. And they're going to sell it on cassette or cartridge if you want to run it on original hardware. It is just straight up a C64 game. And that's cool. Cytronic will be selling this. And the name of the programmer is Stuart Collier. And as well as Trevor Story, who actually worked on a bunch of, has been working in the games industry for a very long time. So it's really neat. I'm very interested in checking this out, and because when you look at the trailer, they put out a trailer for it, and most of the trailer is just like a cutscene style intro, which is funny on a C64 game to begin with. But they give you a gun in this one. Yo, man, in this one you've got a gun, and you can just shoot the robots to stop them, which sounds great. But it has always been a really fascinating game that has been very well loved, that I've always had trouble playing because it's just so fucking tough. This game looks like it might be slightly more modern in its design in ways that I think it's going to tell you what you're picking up as you're picking it up, instead of just leaving it to you to go like, I don't know what the fuck any of this shit is. So I think that there's some interesting developments in that department that might make this game a lot more approachable than some of those games have been. Alma asks, do you have a working Commodore 64? Yeah. I do. I have I have a couple. I have a up here. I'm touching the box that a C64 is in right now. It's in the storage rack above me that I hope doesn't fall on my head someday, but it probably will. But yeah, I have a Commodore 64 right up there, and then I have a Commodore 128 around here somewhere. I think that's in storage. But there's so many different ways to play Commodore 64 games these days. There's that C64 Ultimate that they put out that's just an FPGA based thing, and so the Mister is also a really great way to play a lot of that stuff. So yeah, that's cool that's happening. In the less cool department, it was announced on Facebook as well as other platforms that Yoshihisa Kishimoto, the designer of such games as Double Dragon and Renegade and River City Ransom, has passed away at the age of 64. His son posted to social media to say, I'm sorry to inform you that my father has passed to rest on April 2nd, 2026. I hope you will continue to enjoy my father's works, including Kunio-kun. Thank you. Yeah, it's Kishimoto, I mean, like he came back and was credited on that 2017 that last Double Dragon 4 that Arc put out, because Arc System Works got the licenses to some of that to some of that stuff. But he consulted on some of the more recent kind of River City games and all of that. IGN's got a pretty good write-up of this. Like it's hard to overstate the importance of some of those games. I think Renegade in particular is a game that is very easy to overlook now, because things were moving so quickly back then that Renegade was very quickly replaced by something like a Double Dragon or something that, as technology improved and as games became just a little bit deeper, Renegade being kind of a single screen brawler, and Double Dragon being more of a more traditional kind of foundational scrolling brawler, and then River City Ransom, and for the Kunio-kun games, they're kind of adding role-playing mechanics to that mix about like, okay, buy some food, raise your stats, read this book to get dragon hands or whatever, Acro Circus, and you get your triple kick and your triple punch and all of that. Like, it's a really amazing progression of a genre that he oversaw, like all of that. And I think that is, I think he played an incredibly important role in at a fairly pivotal time in video games, as those games developed, as we would get to stuff like, some of the games that he did not touch, stuff like the Final Fights of the world, and as that genre kind of expanded and what have you, like Double Dragon. I'm trying to think, like, obviously, like they still make Double Dragon games, and Double Dragon, they made a movie, and so there are hints. There are cultural hints that you can look at to realize that Double Dragon was a relatively pivotal video game back then. That movie is amazing, by the way. A real piece of shit, that film. Robert Patrick's finest work. Double Dragon felt like, to me anyway, I don't know, man. Like, and I feel like as I grew up and encountered more video game fans, because I knew other people that played video games, but they were not about that life, if that makes any sense. As I would grow up and eventually, I'd meet, like start working with someone like Greg Kasavin and just some of the other people that I would encounter that like you could, that were about it in ways that, most of the kids that I grew up around were not. You'd start to realize, like the importance of something like Double Dragon. because to me that felt like the best game, the most important game in the world at the time. I would go to that fucking pizza place and I would play Double Dragon, and I would put as much money as I had into it to finish it, and then go and do something else or whatever. But the scrolling action, the hey, at the end of this game you fight a dude with a fucking machine gun, like all of the stuff, like Double Dragon felt so much bigger than so many of the games that were around it at the time. And it's really only a moment. It's really only a snapshot, just a moment in time there where Double Dragon and then Double Dragon 2 felt like the biggest things imaginable. And then we would be on the other side of that so quickly. There would be a craze, right? You know, obviously you'd get a lot of those home ports of Double Dragon, and you know, those are kind of all over the place and whatever, but like it would really only be a short few years before fighting games, I think, took a lot of the things that made Double Dragon special in terms of just like martial arts and combat and a lot of that stuff, that you would see the industry pivot into focusing on deeper combat and one-on-one combat and kind of moving in that direction instead. And, you know, eventually getting us to Street Fighter and then Street Fighter 2. And obviously, I think, you know, those roots go back further than Double Dragon. You can look at something like a Karate Champ and, you know, the Flying Dragon, the Shanghai Kid, the arcade game. You know, you can look at some of that stuff and it kind of presages, or, you know, kind of like gives you hints as to what might be there next. But Double Dragon, again, the size of that game, the impact of that release on arcades, before all of these fucking Konami games and everything would come along, and you know, like, hey, we're doing 6-player X-Men and here's a 4-player Captain America game, and apparently he says I can't lose instead of I can't move. I found that out last night and went and listened to it for myself, and god damn it, apparently Captain America says I can't lose, which is the dumbest. I hate it. I hate knowing that. I shouldn't have said anything. I shouldn't have ruined your day. But Double Dragon, the environments, you know, because like the combat in it is not like super deep, especially by today's standards, right? But at the time, okay, if you double tap the fucking joystick, you'll do the headbutt, and you do this for the elbow, and like it was a game that had moves, you know? And you just didn't see a lot of that then. And so I think that what that did for, you know, again, for fighting games going forward, but also in terms of just like what the genre would become as, you know, I think, you know, Final Fight ends up being, I think, more of a touch point for the games that came afterwards than Double Dragon was, because a lot of Double Dragon, well, you have moments in Double Dragon where there's no verticality, right? Where it's, okay, you're on a bridge, or you're in a part of the game where you cannot walk up and down as much, and you know, you kind of have different parts there. But like that's, I don't know. There's, again, it's hard to kind of overstate the impact that Double Dragon had on arcades at the time. And I think Double Dragon 2 is an incredible follow-up. And the things they did in Double Dragon 2 with like directional, like this is your left attack, this is your right attack, and depending on which way you're facing, that's going to be a punch or a kick or whatever. Like that change, I think, is really fucking cool. It's really fucking fascinating. And that's some of the stuff that you saw, like, I don't know, like that's something that like Renegade, I think in some ways would have benefited from, but like Renegade had like that same type of back kick kind of thing in it. And yeah, so, you know, obviously a huge loss a huge loss for video games with the passing of Yoshihisa Kishimoto. And we didn't even get into River City Ransom. I think River City Ransom is in some ways a perfect video game. It's too easy. It's short. It's all of these other things, but like in terms of advancing that genre and trying to turn it into something that mattered in a different way, River City Ransom is River City Ransom is a game that added RPG mechanics into a traditional genre in ways that made it all work better. In ways that like made that genre matter more and deeper, and I'm surprised that more games didn't steal from that in the wake of that. But like when you think about where we are today, where so many video games have progression of some kind. You are leveling up, you are gaining experience points, you are gaining abilities, you are growing in power, and none of these are, that used to be limited to role-playing games. That was limited to the Dragon Quests of the world, and the way that River City Ransom does that, you could argue that's one of the games that got us here, for better or for worse. Adding experience, turning every game into a role-playing game, earning XP in a fucking racing game, leveling up your cars, all of that, even when Double Dragon made its way to the NES, they found a way to insert some kind of progression into it, which is kind of crazy. But bringing that stuff into a game that was traditionally just like a genre that was traditionally like very one note and like a little dumb, it was just like, hey, it's an action game. Fucking punch the guy, out punch him harder than he punches you, and then do a kick, and then do a, line up the elbow, like all this timing based, mechanics based stuff to then add to that. Hey, here's an inventory, and here's upgrades, and here, like, it's really, it's just fascinating. And I think you could argue that River City Ransom is a game that really kind of pushed all of video games forward. I think it would take a long time for more role-playing mechanics to work their way into a wider array of games, but the popularity of River City Ransom, I don't think can be overlooked in that. What a great game. What a great game. Let's get into the emails. podcast@guard.bike is the email address. If you want to send me an email, send it to that address. podcast@guard.bike. And I will pick it up, dust it off, and give it a look here. Michael writes in from New York City and asks, how did Microsoft lose their way with Halo? Was it really just the Bungie secret sauce that they couldn't replicate? Can the franchise be saved at this point, or is it just another casualty of the live service apocalypse? I feel like this is a really like doom and gloom look at Halo that I don't think is really rooted in reality. I feel like this is, I do think that Halo is not necessarily the powerhouse franchise that it used to be. I think that Halo 5 is not a particularly great game. I think that the storylines of Halo 4 and 5, and to a certain extent Infinite, were not as powerful or interesting as Halo 1, 2, and 3. But to say like, oh, was it the Bungie secret sauce? Like, a lot of people that worked on the initial Halo games, like, were also like 343. Like when that split happened, some of the people that made Halo games continued to make Halo games. Like, a fair number of people went that direction and left Bungie to go to form 343 and continue to make games. Like, obviously they hired up and did different things and whatever, but like, you know, also studio leadership changes and studio, like, people come and go. Like, there are still a lot of people at Bungie that did work on Halo. But like, to act like it was the sort of like secret thing that couldn't be replicated or whatever, like, I don't think that's really a thing. Also, I think Halo 4 was generally fine. Like, if you wanted to like point at things in Halo 4 and 5, I think that the new things they came up with were not as entertaining as the initial trilogy's things. The new guns, the new faction, the new this, the new that. Like, you know, it's telling that they got right back to the Covenant over the course of those games, you know? But also, I think, you know, like, losing their way is a hard one, because I think tastes changed. Like, the other thing to remember is that Halo 4 and 5 came out in a world completely dominated by Call of Duty. Halo 3 came out the same year as Call of Duty 4. And player tastes diverged greatly in that direction over Halo, in ways that you saw in later Halo games, as they went like, can we make the Master Chief run? And they're like, yeah, but why don't we do it as an armor ability? And then they eventually got to a point where they're like, yeah, let's just let him run and let him aim down sights. Let's let him do things that shooter guys do. Because like, it's missing. And so I think a lot of, you know, like, shooters changed. Tastes changed. Interest in shooter campaigns, like the percentages on that, I think, changed a little bit. And I don't think that the games that 343 made were as good as the initial trilogy. But again, Halo 4 is mostly fine in its day. Halo 5, I think, looks a lot worse in retrospect now than it did then. But the card stuff was maybe not amazing. And then, I don't know, Infinite took a long time to make. Tech debt, whatever you want to call it. Like, I think a lot of shit happened along the way. So I don't know. Can the franchise be saved at this point? Like, I sure. Halo is still a name. I would give Halo a much better shot at like finding its way back to a greater mainstream popularity than like Gears at this point. Like, if we're just looking at like Microsoft action franchises or whatever that have been around for a long time and maybe don't have the impact they used to. Like, I think Halo's got a better shot. But like, I think Infinite was a really cool game that had bugs. They had a bad launch, and that was a real problem. That team has seen pretty significant changes since then. I mean, they're called Halo Studios now, right? So I don't know. Like, what happened to Halo is video games changed. You know? Video games changed, and I don't think the people overseeing 343 did enough to keep up with the times and did enough to make those changes. And also, they had a handful of bad. Yeah, Master Chief Collection was a real bad look for them. And the launch of Halo Infinite had plenty of issues as well, technical issues. So I think, you know, just like people's tastes changed and they moved on. And I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing, but I don't really know how you get that back together. I don't know what Halo is at this point. Like, if they make another one, and they will, right? They're solving the technical end, right? They're moving to Unreal Engine in a way that will make it easier to hire people on. It's not ancient technology. It's not all of the tech debt that they supposedly had while developing Infinite. Like, I remember I would get emails from people that said that they were working on Infinite, and they would just say, yeah, man, the things we're having to do to get this engine to do the shit we're trying to make it do, like the number of things we're going to need to like cut from this game before it ships and this and that. Like, there was just so much between announcement and release for Halo Infinite. That I think a lot of it just got strained to a breaking point. And I don't know what happens from here. You know, I don't. It's a hard one. I have a fairly dim view, I think, of the future of a lot of these, you know, kind of first party Xbox franchises that they seem to want to lean on this year. Whether it's with the re-release of Halo 1 and like the way they talk about like a whole new audience will get to play Halo because it'll be on PlayStation. And you're like, yeah, I guess. How about a whole new audience will get to play Halo because they were not born when Halo 1 came out? Like that's maybe a better way to put that. And also, I don't know that those players will want to play a remake of Halo 1. Nothing about a remake of Halo 1 sounds especially engaging in a big mainstream way, especially without the multiplayer or whatever. So it's not even this Halo game that we're looking at and going like, what's going to happen with Halo? It's the next one. This is the one they're doing just to get everyone used to shipping something on Unreal Engine, and it'll probably be cool in some ways or whatever. But I do not want to play I like, again, as someone who was not a huge Halo fan at the time, but I would think that people who were big Halo fans at the time might also like feel this way 10 times as much. There's nothing about going back to playing the Halo 1 campaign again that sounds like super intriguing to me. Just seeing some new teams take on remastering or remaking that is just like, all right. Unless they make dramatic changes to make it a much more modern feeling game or whatever. Like I just kind of look at it and go like, I don't know, man. And multiplayer shooters are in such a weird funk, and Microsoft owns the other big one, you know, the other big non-free-to-play shooter in Call of Duty, and so their need to have a Halo in their portfolio is a lot like Sony needing to have Killzone in their portfolio, right? Like maybe they don't need it anymore. Though I guess the other side of that argument is Call of Duty is kind of a bummer, and no one, I don't know if anyone, like they rolled out a new season and I don't think anyone cared. So, maybe it's time to get behind Halo and try to bring that back or something. But I don't really know what the answer is. But what happened to Halo is, you know, like I said, I think to answer your question is I don't think Microsoft lost their way to some degree, as you put it, but I think ultimately tastes changed and Halo was no longer on the menu. And I think it's really as simple as that. Spring Break My Heart asks, what is this year's Call of Duty supposed to be? I thought I saw something saying it was going to be Modern Warfare 4, which seems like a number too high for Modern Warfare. I don't think there should ever be a Modern Warfare 4. I think they should only make 3 of those. They should clearly be rebooting Modern Warfare again and just calling it Modern Warfare and do another trilogy and then never make a game called Modern Warfare 4. Just the word, just MW4, just anything about Modern Warfare 4 sounds so wrong to me, considering what Modern Warfare 3 was. I think Modern Warfare 3, the original one, though also I guess the remake one, like disappointing games. Not the sorts of games that you want to follow up on with a direct sequel or whatever. Not that they even do direct sequels. I don't know. What the fuck is Modern Warfare? It's fucking Ghost. It's get the Ghost skin. Ghost is in this one. Price is here. He's smoking a cigar. I don't know. Alex from Roll writes in and says, with the PlayStation 6 likely releasing in the next 2 years, I'll echo what others on the show have been saying. It still feels like this generation hasn't really started yet or hasn't found its stride. Since Nintendo is likely focusing on the Switch 2 for the next 6-ish years, and Microsoft is essentially removing itself as a traditional competitor, not to mention the rising cost of everything, I wondered if Sony could just hold off until 2030 to release a PlayStation 6. So could Sony wait it out a little longer, or do they have to release a successor soon? Can they instead focus on what we all want, PlayStation All-Stars 2? Yes, clearly. No. So the competitive landscape will not allow it to wait, because if Microsoft ships something that is called an Xbox and PlayStation doesn't have something in the market, then the narrative very quickly becomes like, well, we've got the new thing. Or you could go get a PlayStation 5. What is that? Ancient history. Like the marketing, I think, would not work. But the larger kind of issue there is that happens behind the scenes, where they've been spending millions and millions of dollars on R&D to build a new console. And they probably, I mean, we'll see how the next 4 years go, I guess, with the cost of everything being such a fucking disaster and technology, feeling like it's not moving forward at the same rate that it was. Like, maybe the impact of this gets slightly lessened, but the problem is that you've done most of the work to build a new console. You've told all your development partners, all your third parties, hey, we're pushing for PlayStation 6. It's going to happen within this time frame. Like, you're starting to signal to them, hey, there's going to be another one. And so they start getting ready for that. You've got, they're making decisions based on whatever you've told them that the PlayStation 6 is going to be. If you pull the rug out from under them, that's bad. If you delay your console, all of the R&D money you've spent starts becoming obsolete, whether you ship the console or not. Because something new may very well come along in the years that you've chosen to sit out. And so by the time you say, let's make a PlayStation 6, maybe the parts that you thought you were going to use are no longer being produced in the quantities you thought they were going to be used in, because everyone's moved on to a 2-nanometer process. And so suddenly you're like, oh, we have to engineer an entirely different chip now. We have to start over. We have to throw away all of this work we've done and engineer something new from scratch because tech has changed. And so there is sort of a rock and hard place idea at play here that, again, I think, maybe the impact of that is slightly lessened because sometimes it just feels like tech is not moving at the rate that it used to. And, the PlayStation 5, again, like it doesn't always feel like a console that is as old as it actually is. Not to say that it, but also, like, then we back into what do people think a modern PC is, and what do we think that that's capable of, and what can we put in a box for? I was going to say $600, but I guess maybe that number is higher now. Like, what can you get away with building a PlayStation 6? What's the most power? What is the most power you can put into a box over the next 3 or 4 years and still hit some kind of consumer price point? I don't really know. And what do you think? Yeah, like what is the release window? Like, there was some indication that we would get consoles next year. And so that's like under 2 years away. If we assume like a October, November, somewhere in that time frame of 2027. And so if we're going like, November 27, new hardware. What does that mean for developers that are developing games? What does that mean for all of these things that normally you hear about behind the scenes as stuff gets pushed into? You say what you will about Microsoft's strategy or the likelihood that they'll actually hit it and nail it, but they are openly signaling publicly that they're moving in this direction, whereas PlayStation has not really had too much to say publicly about the future of the PlayStation, I think. And I don't know if they're disclosing, like if they're disclosing to third parties at this point, it's something that's probably happening at a very high level, because if it was a lower level of disclosure and more people and more devs were finding out a lot about PlayStation 6, all of that would have leaked out at GDC. So if Sony was out there telling a lot of people about the PlayStation 6, we would know a lot more about it right now. That's not to say we know nothing. There kind of is fresh batches of leaks and little bits and tidbits that do seem to indicate the dual platform strategy of a handheld and a console. Like, you know, there's been more people talking about that direction over the last week and a half. But yeah, I don't know. And what games do you put on that, and who's making them? Because clearly they'd have to be making them right now. Right? And so does this become a big cross-platform launch strategy where, like, basically what I'm saying is, and this, we talked about this last week, so I won't belabor the point too much here, but do you think the PlayStation 5 ends up being a viable ongoing part of Sony's PlayStation strategy? And I don't mean in the way that the PlayStation 4 was, because remember, like, new PlayStation 4 games were announced like a couple of weeks ago. Like, there are still those games being made. But if we live in a world where there's a high-end PlayStation 6 and a low-end PlayStation 6 era handheld, and the PlayStation 5 hardware family is in the middle of those two things, wouldn't you then, unless there were some architectural change that would not allow that, wouldn't you also put all those games out on PS5? Like, wouldn't the PS5 end up being as viable as it ever was, and the PlayStation 6 would just become a better PlayStation 5 Pro? Like, what is the selling point of the PlayStation 6? Is it exclusive games? Or is it more power? Or is it something new that we haven't thought of? Right? Meaning the high-end PlayStation 6. Not because the portable is a different, you know, different selling point and whatever, but like, shouldn't you just keep selling the PlayStation 5 for people in the middle who want a reasonably powerful console but might not want to pay the price of a PlayStation 6, which I'm sure will be a fucking gazillion dollars considering PS5 prices? Like, wouldn't you just never retire the PS5 and just say this generation is like, this generation's going to be like this, and maybe it'll be like this permanently, and maybe it won't? Maybe this is the transition to that iPhone strategy of just like, I don't know, man, we put one out every so often, and if you want better performance, yeah, get one. And eventually the older machines roll off the back end of compatibility, and eventually they retire, but not, you know, the PS4, like I said, new PlayStation 4 games were announced like last month. If not this month, you know, like there's still plenty of like multi-platform games that come to all of these fucking platforms. And so why would that change? Why would they not, in fact, codify that and make that a bigger part of their strategy going forward, especially in a world where all of this stuff is super fucking expensive? You know? If some bottom drops out and like, hey, you know, like these consoles can become affordable again, which will not happen, but let's have fun for a minute, then maybe you start phasing out PS5 because you want to sell more PlayStation 6s, because you want to stop having to support as many SKUs or whatever. Like, maybe you would do that if we found ourselves in a world where a PlayStation 6 was suddenly like affordable. Haha. But in a world where that is looking very, 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 very unlikely, whether it's the price of oil, whether it's the price of RAM and other high-tech internal components, whether it's the cost of putting these things on a boat safely from one side of the world to the other, all of those costs are going to impact everyone. So yeah, ultimately I don't know. But I don't see the PlayStation 5 going away anytime soon. So whatever happens with PS6, if it really does ship next year, okay, sure. And maybe it'll have some whiz-bang new feature that you'll go like, oh, fuck, that's a thing that the PlayStation 5 couldn't do. and it's a big changer. Like this actually changes games. Like maybe, or maybe they're just sitting on some fucking NPU, and they'll go like, yeah, man, I don't know, this thing's got better texture compression because AI. But PSSR 3, you can fuck it now. You can fuck it with your dick. PSSR 3. No more scans of ears. Point that camera lower. Let's see here. Cody writes in from Orange County. The birthplace of ska. No? All right. This is also PlayStation 6 related. So, with the game industry in such an odd spot, could Sony release its portable PlayStation 6 before the home console? If the portable is less powerful than a PS5, maybe it's less sensitive to inflated component prices. It likely won't have as much RAM or as large of an SSD, for instance. Maybe it's priced around $600 and releases in 2027. Yeah, maybe. Developers could still punt on creating PlayStation 6 games until the home console arrives, as the portable PS6 must be capable of playing PS5 games. We essentially get a portable PS5 in 2027 and a handheld that will also play PS6 games when the time comes. Sure, Cody. Yeah, I mean, you could. Sony could buy themselves a little time in hopes that the component market normalizes. No one wants to see a PlayStation 6 at $1,000 plus. Do you think Sony would or should make this move? Are there cons to releasing a portable PS6 when there may be no actual PS6 games released for over a year? So you're talking about a number of different issues there, right? The PlayStation 6, like, oh, if they put out a PlayStation 6 handheld and there are no PlayStation 6 games, or like, that's a marketing problem. They could just call it fucking PSP 2 and it plays PS5 games. They could call it whatever, right? And if they slap a 6 on it, there becomes expectations about what PlayStation 6 games are and what that means, and that's a problem they would have to solve. But if they wanted to go this route, if they wanted to say, hey, we're making, we're going to make the portable before we make the console, then they could just name it whatever. If they said, hey, we're putting this thing out and it runs PlayStation 5 games, also it'll be future proofed, it'll, hey, and also it won't be going away next generation, hint hint, whatever, and you just call it whatever. I think, like having like the idea, like assuming all of this stuff is fucking accurate, right? Again, we're dealing with rumors stacked on top of rumors, stacked on top of supposed leaks and rumors, and this stuff seems accurate, but I've yet to have enough conversations with people to where I feel like this is clearly, definitely, obviously the move. It seems like it is. It seems like enough people have had similar conversations or whatever, right? But I think it's weird to like, okay, like, what would they call it? Obviously, the console you call the PlayStation 6. But what do you call the portable? If it's less powerful than a PlayStation 5 and you're not sunsetting the PS5 because prices and everything else, then you can't just call that the PlayStation 6 portable, right? That's a weird product line at this point. If you're like, you get a PlayStation 5 or you get a PlayStation 6 or you get a portable PlayStation 6, which isn't as powerful as a PlayStation 5. You're like, what? That gets solved by just not calling the handheld a PlayStation 6 of any stripe and just say it plays PS5 and PS6. It plays PS4, 5, and 6 games. It's that triple. It's that PS triple. It plays 4, 5, and 6. And some 1 and 2. But no 3. We will never readdress the PlayStation 3. But yeah, you could call that whatever to solve that issue. It's an interesting idea of holding off the console for a bit if prices are too crazy, I guess. But again, I think at the end of the day, I think, if they've been signaling, and plans change, I guess, but like if they've been signaling windows of release and everything to their partners, if they've gone to 2K and said, hey, here's when the next PlayStation's coming out. Be ready November 07 or 27. You know, if they've gone to EA and said, here's when it's coming out, make the feet of these Madden players look better than they've ever. I want these blades of grass to have blades of grass inside of them. You know? Like if they're out there telling major players, whatever's left of that, but if they're out there telling these third parties, hey, here's when it's time to be ready, and then they push it off, like that's a waste of money for everybody involved. You know, if EA is devoting significant efforts right now to making PlayStation 6 games because they think that's going to happen next year, and then it doesn't, you know, that's you don't want to do that if you can help it. But we do live in unprecedented times, so maybe they can't help it. Simon from Hong Kong writes in and says, I know there's been a few times when the topic of combat control and player controls have come up, usually when discussing the longevity of the Batman series combat and free flow combat. I have recently been playing Cairn, C-A-I-R-N, Cairn. I'm having like a super mental block right now about the pronunciation of that word. Karen 2. Anyway, sorry. And before, spent some time with Half Sword and Ex Anima. Do you think there's a future where full body control becomes a mainstream advancement of combat, or will it forever be stuck in the niche department? It's kind of the evolution of control and control schemes, I think, is a really interesting one. Mainstream advancement of combat, or will it ever be stuck in the niche department? I think that like you've got these niche games that want to do very interesting things with combat and like having every button's a limb like Tekken, but also highs and lows and everything and triggers and hold this and do this. I think that's what you're getting at here when you talk about Half Sword and maybe some of this other stuff. But like sometimes those games go too far in ways that they are just for sickos, you know? But ultimately, like, you know, Gang Beasts is a really fun example of like limb-based, physics-based, like here's a different paradigm for this style of combat. And Gang Beasts keeps it light and simple enough that like anyone can play it and enjoy it, but there is kind of a weird skill to truly mastering the crazy physicsy thing of Gang Beasts. But you wouldn't take that combat and put it into a Batman game, right? You wouldn't, you know, because when you're selling a Batman game, you're aiming high. You're trying to sell to a wide audience of players across a wide range of skill levels. And so making some insane over-the-top combat system that gives you crazy levels of control over the player doesn't sell, or it's too complicated for a lot of players to master. And so you sort of end up there. But if you're talking about full body control as like, hey, are we strapping controllers to our own legs or VR this or that? Like, I think that ship sailed. You know, the interest in the overall interest in that type of thing is minimal. I do think there's like to me the interesting question becomes, do you think that controllers will ever be different again? And I don't mean like, hey man, we put a touchpad in the middle of it that most games don't use. Like the touchpad on the PlayStation controller, like how much money is wasted on that fucking thing? What do the parts cost for the touchpad on a DualSense that they should have just put a fucking like select button on the controller? I'd much rather have 6 buttons on the face than that touchpad, because no one uses the touchpad. No one needs it. Most games reduce it to like, do you want to see the map? Touch this big button in the middle. Like they could put like a keypad there or something. I don't know, like fucking Jaguar controllers make more sense in some sick way. But yeah, I don't know what what is the next step there? Screens in the controller, I would love to see it. That's actually the thing the PlayStation Portal like I thought was kind of cool was like it's the Wii U, right? It's the Wii U of holding it, and what if you had a screen there of some kind? To me, it like that's stuff that like, hey, if you were, and the example always goes back to like what VMUs were theoretically good for, but it was that idea of if you're playing a football game with someone else and they're sitting right there, you want to call plays in secret. If you're playing Uno with someone, you need to keep your hand secret from the other player. And if you had your own screen, man, local couch co-op Uno would never be the same. Now, that's an exciting fucking sentence to say to, I don't know, 40 or 50 people around the world tops. So clearly this is the right answer. But, you know, again, like couch co-op is not the thing we're pushing in the direction of, right? Unless you're Nintendo, and even they're not really. They want you to use game chat. They want you to game chat. Has anyone used game chat yet? Has anyone tried that yet? Anyone actually been in a game chat session with any human beings? I have not. But like, is it a new button? Is it, you know, like gyro controls are fairly well established as a concept, and I think the people that are into those, and they're monsters. I love that idea, but I can't. I don't know. Like I aim worse with gyro controls than I do with a right stick. So fuck all that. Yeah, AI, sure. Yeah. Sure. There'll be your AI chat buddy. You can talk to your controller and say, "Hey man, I'm stuck in the game." And it'll say, "You need to fucking jump up there and hit the switch." But like there are so many other ways to signal that. And games are doing that all the time. Aloy could very easily talk to you every 15 seconds and talk to herself and say, "Now I need to climb up there and hit that switch." Kratos' son is perfectly capable of telling you that you're an idiot and you need to climb up there and hit the fucking switch. We don't need AI. You don't need to offload that to some NPU. Like, we've got to find a way. Like, games do that already. It's not like, who cares? Like, games do that already and people are mad about it. So, like, the idea of an AI buddy that you're going to, you know, like, what are they going to do? And we got your AI buddy and we're going to sell new voices on it. Would you like to have the voices of Rick and Morty tell you how to finish Borderlands 5? You're in luck. I mean, we don't even have buttons on the back of the controllers being defined buttons across multiple platforms, right? They're only on the expensive versions of most controllers. And in most cases, they just duplicate the functionality that are on the front. So they could put buttons on the back and make them unique buttons. You know? Like that's something you could potentially investigate. And maybe that would enhance certain things. You could have like, oh, we've got a squeeze grip trigger, and now if you want to aim down sights, you just squeeze your left hand and then you'll aim down sights instead of pulling this trigger. I don't know. This is not better, but you know, maybe that would be. So I don't really know. I don't know where we go from here, control wise, controller wise, and do we need to evolve it? I guess is the other thing. Does it need to change? I inherently, I feel like they should. I feel like controllers haven't evolved much over the years, and it would be neat to see something new. It would be exciting to be excited about something, about new things. You know what I mean? Like it's why I keep buying all these fucking third-party controllers and mice. Give me something, shit, man. Let's try something out. The touchpads on the Steam Deck are neat, but they're not necessarily something you're going to use. Like, not every type of game benefits from those. So, yeah, I don't know. Yeah, it's a crank. Put a crank on the side of the thing. Now you're talking video games. But, yeah, it's... I would like to see some dramatic change. Whether it's on the console side, hardware, internals, or just some kind of new thing, or some meaningful controller change. I don't know. Some of it could be really brain dead simple type stuff. You know, like if they took the touchpad off of a PlayStation 5 controller and instead put like a third analog stick or like a D-pad, like a 4 buttons in a D-pad like configuration that you could use for directionally if a game needs it, or just buttons for, you know, instead of having to ever go to a subscreen to equip something, like here's a thing here, or like a mouse nub. I don't know. Like, there's probably something you could fucking do functionality wise. That would be unique thing. Like, okay, okay, we have a bunch of weapons in this game and you need to switch between them at a moment's notice. And so we put buttons in the middle of the controller to let you do that, because you don't need to swipe on the controller and all, like Ghost of fucking Yote swiping up. Like, half the time I swipe up in Ghost of Yote and it doesn't fucking work. Like, there's been cases playing that game where I'd like swipe to make the wind blow so I could see where to go, where I had to swipe like 3 or 4 fucking times. And then it would finally do it. Just put a keypad there. Sell in television style fucking inserts. And then one of the buttons is just marked wind. And then I just push the one key and then the wind blows. And I go, that works every time. I can't remember what any of these buttons do because there's too many of them. But if I put the little insert in and it says wind here, I can put it in. I don't know. These are... My answers here are bad, to be clear. These are not the actual solutions. But it would be nice to see something. Let's see. A couple of retail people with recent retail experience wrote in. Jim from the Gold Coast in Australia says, I work retail for a major department store here and can offer some thoughts on how retail for video games is going. Remember, we were talking about this last week because Nintendo was changing some of their prices, and, you know, the physical games will be more expensive and all of that stuff. Firstly, in terms of retail physical space, we have one small aisle for physical games. It was changed around October of last year, in which the majority of space is now taken up by Nintendo, then PlayStation, and then a tiny Xbox section. Yeah. Our biggest sellers are physical hardware. We even go through a decent amount of Xbox hardware still, with a lot of people buying a Series S. It's generally pretty close in terms of top seller between the Switch and Switch 2 and the PlayStation. Controllers are also a big seller. At Christmas, we sold out of all stock of every console and version by the last week before Christmas. Restock is pretty fast too now. When multi-platform games come in, we generally get, say, 10 copies of the PlayStation version and 2 to 4 of the Xbox version. Unless it's a major franchise, we don't seem to often get restock of an item. Something big like a Call of Duty or FIFA, we will get like 20 copies of each version. Generally, the Xbox versions will still have copies on shelf until the next year's game comes out. I think the last big physical game will be GTA 6. I anticipate we will get a lot more copies of that compared to any other game, and can see it moving some hardware too. A lot of Roblox and Fortnite cards are sold as well. I've noticed more Roblox is sold. I think the future for retail is in hardware, as a lot of customers don't trust such a big ticket item to be purchased as an online order and delivered to their home. Also, I think there will also be a market for Nintendo physical games, as a lot of families still purchase that way. I hope this gives you a picture from one retailer perspective. Yeah, so yeah, that kind of lines up, I think, with kind of how I figured it was going in a lot of cases, especially in terms of restock. That it's like they're not looking to keep everything on shelves, but also that hardware matters. The other thing that's changed is remember, hardware prices used to go down over time. A video game console would become cheaper over its lifespan instead of more expensive. And so because there was this price war and one console was trying to compete with another one neck and neck, and you would have these sorts of competitive situations, they wanted the consoles to be priced as cheaply as possible. And so with retail taking a cut of that, that means that like they already have these razor thin margins and everything else. So with these prices going up and everything else, the margins on game sales are probably not awesome in physical form anyway. But a big ticket item like a console, it becomes a lot easier to kind of justify selling that stuff at retail. Even because, before, because those margins were so thin, I think that was part of what kept everyone in check with regards to physical versus digital sales and making any major changes on the pricing or whatever, is because retail used to move a lot more of everything. And so retail used to be able to say things like, hey, you can't do that to us or we will take your consoles off the shelves. Nowadays, those retailers are desperate for anyone to come in there for any reason. Like a Best Buy? How many of y'all going to a Best Buy? I bought my Switch 2 from a Best Buy. I went and picked it up because I wanted to have it that night. But like by and large, when are you, someone asks, when's the last time you entered a GameStop? I don't know. It's been at least 6 years since I have stood in, It's before the pandemic, that's for sure. I feel like the last new retail game I bought from a GameStop is WarioWare Gold, which came out in 2018. I remember walking into a store at the mall and buying one. And I think everything since then I've either ordered online or, I've not bought a lot of physical games since then. But that was probably the last time I was inside a GameStop buying a video game. And that was some time ago for sure. All right. That's going to do it for me here. I hope everyone out there is hanging in there. Obviously it's just stuff's been, I don't even know what, one of the weird things about doing this show live is just like, I don't know, 3 hours just passed and I don't know what the fuck is happening in the world anymore. It could be anything. It could literally be anything. I could open this garage door and it could be a wasteland out there and I'd be like, oh, yeah, I guess, right? Bandits roaming the streets. Anything could happen now. But yeah, hang in there. We'll let's do another 200 of these. I mean, at minimum, maybe we'll do another 2,000 of them. Who can say? But here we are, 200 episodes in on this thing, and I'll be back next week. We'll keep going. I meant to try to get a guest on the show this week, but I got too busy and didn't. But there's a couple of people that I have in mind. Three people I have in mind for short term. I should get so and so on the show, and I should get in touch with them and try to get some stuff booked for the next handful of weeks here. But yeah, I'm gonna get going, and we'll be back next week. See you then. Bye.